All right, folks, it started out like a gentlemanly game of Deadlock, and it turned into an absolute bar brawl in that previous game. TF2 Boomers once again have been knocked into the stratosphere, this time, of course, by melee creeps who have made it into our money match against Hydra Nation. As a disclaimer, because everyone loves asking this in chat over and over again, even though you know what happened to them, PayPal was caught cheating. They have been outed from their team. Their team, Llama Lords, forfeited their victory last week. We put Hydra Nation back in that top spot. Now they'll be fighting against melee creeps to defend that top spot. We've got that out of the way. You can clip it, pin it, play it into your head 100 times over just so you get the message. That's where we're at here. So now here at the Deadlock Fight Night presented by Intel for North America, number 12, we need to see if Hydra Nation can keep this uninterrupted streak going. And there's $1,000 on the line, of course, in this kind of game. Let's bring Jake in, Jason, before we get started, because we're feeling pretty... So there's two facets of this discussion, I think. First of all, Hydra Nation, whilst losing to a cheater last week, did look fallible in other areas of their game, and other members, of course, that Llama Lords roster were able to put pressure on them, the ones that weren't cheating. Also, melee creeps, conversely, are looking improved. They looked quite dominant in that previous game.
I mean, I think Hydra Nation, you've got to consider them the favorites just from the run of domination that they've had in North America. But I think this is a melee creeps coming off a win that's went about as well as you could hope for it to go. I mean, they were in total control of that last series, from winning the lanes, moving ahead. I do think, we were talking about this a little before the show about, Hydra Nation may have been kind of woken up, even though it was losing to a cheater, right? It's like that, the rare opportunity where you get a loss that gets reversed. But I think they probably got the feeling, at least, of knowing what that feels like, and that they don't want to let it happen again, Jason.
Yeah, and also one thing for Hydra Nation to deal with this week, obviously, of losing last week, is that they have to bring in a new player. I actually am not 100% sure if it's happening this week, but I'm pretty sure it is. Quig decided to actually quit playing Deadlock. He didn't get kicked. He's just like, I think I'm just done. And they're picking up Lord and M from Llama Lords. So the rule of thumb is, if you're Hydra Nation, or if you're playing against Hydra Nation, don't come close to beating them, or don't beat them, because they're just going to take a player from you. We've talked about them taking players constantly from some other teams. But I mean, that's also the other question for Hydra Nation. How well are they going to be able to play around him? And I'm going to say, I think pretty well. I think Lord has shown us he can play a range of different heroes, and he can be very effective on all of them.
I seem to remember him on a lot of Lash, no?
Yeah, he played a lot of Lash as well.
Okay. So that obviously is the new look here for Hydra Nation. Quick was their support prior to this, if I'm not mistaken. We often saw him on Kelvin or something similar, getting sacrificed to the equity gods in order to set Hydra Nation's carries up for success. Often Quig, we saw him playing in a pretty low economy capacity, just making sure that he was, setting up to support his team as well as possible. We just saw melee creeps, of course. They are Cool Cheese, Sire, AVG, Posture Pop, Low Main, and Acts. Sire was our player of the match presented by Intel for our challenger game on that lady. Guys, really running away with the game. Now, do we have this? Do we have our history of winners here at Deadlock Fight Night NA? If we do, we can run the graphic and give you guys a bit of an update on where we're at. We may not have... Oh, look at this. I mean, our production team is so good.
Jeez.
Right, we need to scroll down. We need to scroll down the page. At some point, we just need to list out who Hydra Nation beat in any other week. You will note here that, obviously, in number 11, we had Llama Lords take down Hydra Nation 2-1. That is a result that was annulled, just like one of Henry VIII's marriages, given that we found one of the players to be... cheating. So they, of course, remain our King of the Hill team. Melee creeps looks like, is this the first time they've had a crack at Hydra Nation in the money match? Let's go.
In the money match, yeah, but they have played against them in another tournament a few weeks back, and they were able to take a map off of them. So it is possible for them to pull off a win here. And again, we've been hearing from players, Jake's been hearing from scrims as well, that they are becoming a very strong team, potentially becoming the number 2 team, or maybe number 1 here this week.
What are the odds of that? Do you guys... Yeah, we talked about it. I think melee creeps still need to show us that they can actually put together that kind of game plan against a dominant team, a team who looks very, very good in lane, who maybe puts the right solo laners in place as well, which is a criticism we had of the TF2 Boomers, like with the solo Warden, solo Lash lanes that they really weren't able to fight their way out of. So this is looking like a completely different game. We felt like I was more excited about TF2 Boomers draft just because it seemed pretty well rounded, but I think you guys gave both teams pretty perfect scores coming out of the draft. You were pretty happy with what you saw.
Yeah, I think we'll need to see if melee creeps can keep up that drafting prowess against Hydra Nation, who's been historically the best team, especially in NA, at drafting. as far as like putting their opponents on the back foot, having really wide hero pools and unconventional choices that really respond well to what their opponents bring. That being said, right, the advantage for Melee Creeps being out of the mix a little bit is that Hydra Nation are certainly the much more known quantity. They've done a lot more drafts on stream that are available for review. So I'll put a percentage on it once we come out of these drafts, see if Melee Creeps can come out of it with the same parity that they had last game.
So when I look at this and I look at any team playing Hydra Nation, I think a lot about Virtus Pro. Is that you can't really ban them out and you can't really outpick them. They will provide a viable composition with whatever they have available. Same with what we've seen for Virtus Pro. So for me, if you're Melee Creeps, it's about how can we maximize what we need to win, i.e. AVG needs to have a strong game, in my opinion. If he's going to be up against Leffa or he's up against DMB, you can't let either of those two players get ahead. DMB will push objectives, Leffa will 1v1 you, and then he'll join his team for fights. So it's about how can we allow our solo laners to have success, but also we have to think about how can we potentially keep hydration on the back foot, because what he'll do is just farm away while the rest of his team fights, and he comes out of the lane, 20, 30k souls and just decimates you in fights. So Melee Creeps, you can't really focus about banning them out. You just need to focus about what kind of viable comp can we make to accomplish what we need to win these games.
We've had the Lash first pick denied here by Melee Creeps, despite them getting good value out of it in the previous lane. And no low main Vindicta shenanigans here. That is our bans here in our first round. Melee Creeps, the first pick.
For Calico, it's got to be one of those.
They value Calico higher than the Shiv here, I guess.
Can be super strong in the solo lanes. I think this does put a bit more pressure, put the Calico up against Leffa, maybe challenge him a little bit on some of that farm accumulation that he likes to go for. However, I have a hard time seeing too many people coming out on top of the solo lane against Leffa. I think, keeping him down is more of a matter of devoting more resources than just a one-on-one. Right now, for my money, mechanically, Leffa is kind of the best. But Hydra Nation, this gives them the opportunity to get something like a Paradox Wraith. That would be the EU draft. Curious to see if they get the Wraith as well. I feel like Wraith's pretty decent against Calico. Her ulti, of course, she could dodge your Wraith ulti. However, I feel like Calico wants to get it, wants to dive in on top of people, and there's just a big threat with that level of stun and silence lockdown.
If you, sorry, go
towards Yamato for some reason. I don't know. We saw Leffa play Yamato last week, and I'm not really sure how well it does when it comes to like 1v1 against a Calico. If we are going to see Calico in a solo lane,
bound to fight.
Okay. Warden instead. So neither of those two, obviously, pretty highly picked or banned here. We saw him obviously in the previous game. Also, we did see a Warden in a solo lane in that last game, and despite his ability to push with his alchemical flask, he definitely struggled. Was pushed back under his guardian a lot of the time. We'll probably see Hydra Nation do something a bit more conventional, and I put that in one of our duo lanes here and let Warden sort of push that out and allow for one of those laners to maybe go and assist with the solo lane on some regular ganks. Holiday and Calico, first 2 picks here for Melee Creeps.
Okay, so hydration going to be on the Warden. I think we're safe to assume, Jake.
Yeah, most likely. I think maybe
this
pick is for, it's just Shiv was already banned out. You want to just get hydration on like a solid comfort hero. You already have devoted a ban to him. I don't think it's crazy to take something like a Warden to just secure him a good position a little earlier in the draft. Melee Creeps with the Holiday have nice pick off here. Curious to see if they go for a Wraith, Geist, something like that nature. Or the Mirage, another high prio for the global presence. Could put the pressure on Hydra Nation, who historically has out macroed a lot of their opponents. It's hard to do that against Mirage. Still valuing. I wouldn't hate the Yamato, honestly. In what we've seen so far with the catch from Holiday and Tornado from Mirage, having somebody who can just shrug off all that stun control doesn't seem terrible here.
We've seen the Mirage look pretty good in like the 1-1-4 setups, or even like the 1-5s, where just push a side lane, split push it essentially, and then just TP in for the big fights here. Pretty early Kelvin pick, at least based on what we've seen. Normally we see him go at 4 or 5, but Hydra Nation snap him up right here.
Kelvin was huge in that last game, right? And it kind of has like a semi-block on a lot of heroes that Melee Creeps could be looking for, like Lash and Pocket. I think Kelvin just has great counter initiation, great for like late game big frontliner team fights, healing these people up. Would love to see Hydra Nation pick up, heroes like Geist to kind of go along with this Kelvin to make use of the healing that he offers in the middle of a team fight.
And I'm not surprised to see them necessarily pick like Kelvin kind of early, because I feel like the way they're drafting here for Hydra Nation, it's like what can we give Leffa and DMB where they're most comfortable? And the best way to do that is kind of delay those picks to allow to see what the other team is going to pick, unless you're trying to snatch them right away. Like we saw Leffa would always get like Infernus as a very early pick. So it's not too surprising, but to see them ban out Wraith, I mean, I guess they don't get the next pick, so it kind of makes sense.
The Kelvin here as well is a big Lord and M pick. We've seen Lord and M play Kelvin twice. They actually have better SPM than Quig, even though they've only played 2 games. Quig's 5. So Lord and M might just be a pretty decent plug and play replacement, at least in a composition like this for Quig. We see the Lash here, also the Wraith banned out in this second round, guys.
I think Viscous, something to think about here for Hydra Nation. Could fit well to saves. I think the Lash ban is because since Hydra Nation have Kelvin, melee creeps don't want to draft Lash, but they don't want to give it up either because they know Hydra Nation can probably take it as well. And I mean, Lash is a great counter initiate onto like someone like Holiday finding a lasso, or you know, and Mirage like goes in and starts a fight or something on a TP, and then you know Lash has this beautiful counter initiate. So
okay.
The Yamato just getting now. He's secured Leffa's hero, and for Hydra Nation, you know, I think they've got such a great core here. I'm thinking about Viscous. I'm thinking about Geist as far as like their next couple picks. Melee creeps grab the Viscous for themselves, giving themselves a bit more stun setup, a bit more opening control to disrupt the team fight. I don't super love the Viscous against this draft. I think it's fine, but I think with Yamato and Kelvin being able, Yamato just shrugging off the stuns, Kelvin being able to drop the frozen shelter and just completely block out something like the roll. Not the best Viscous game, but it's just been so high prio recently.
Both Viscous, both Saya and both Saya and Lomain have played Viscous in the past. Lomain actually currently ranked as the number 2 Viscous in NA based on souls per minute, so just behind Hydration, even though they've only got the 1 game under their belt.
I'm looking at like what's Vegas gonna play, because he plays a lot of like Great Talon, Vindicta, Holiday, and I mean we're not gonna see Vindicta. I don't assume we're gonna see necessarily Great Talon in this composition.
Talon's fine here. There's plenty of front line. There's plenty of catch. I think a backline Spirit Burst is fine here. I think if Vegas has other heroes in the pool, I don't think it's the end of the world. But I got you. They go for the Infernus.
So now it's like, is Leffa going to be on the Yamato, or is he going to be on the Infernus?
Yeah, could see DMB picking up one of these. As like the third
Leffa's played it 9 times, DMB 6. So both of them love to go to it, and they're both top 3 in NA. And that's
in this draft. I think Yamato's going to get the higher farm prio, which almost always is going to be Leffa's role to take the highest farm prio and you know, show up in these team fights early. Or if anything, maybe Infernus is a little bit more solo farming, where Yamato's going to show up in the team fights and engage early. So yeah, Vegas does find the talent here. I think it's fine adding a little bit of global presence with the bird. The ultra long range burst could be nice. Sometimes someone like the Geist wants to sit at low HP, and that feels a lot scarier with talent around.
So this has to be Yamato, Infernus solo lanes for Hydra Nation, yes?
Yeah, almost certainly.
Yeah. We've seen Leffa play both of those in solo lanes at some point or another. So Lady Geist does get locked in here for melee creeps.
So Jake, if you're Hydra Nation, I'm looking at like, do you want to pair Kelvin with Great Talon to make sure Great Talon has a good strong start, or do you want to like potentially put Great Talon with someone that you can have a lot more early burst on? Because like Paradox Warding can be pretty deadly lane, but also gives you, I mean, if you put them both the same lane, it means you can't split them up to have more ganks on solo lanes to apply pressure more evenly across the map.
Sure, but I don't think Warden's going to do too much solo lane ganking. If anything, I think Warden's the hero who kind of pressures the wave in, and then Paradox could look for the pre 3K roams. And then Kelvin and Talon can pressure the waves together, and then Kelvin's probably the one who's going to roam out of that lane to go to a side lane. Yeah. That's my like expected lanes here. For melee creeps, I think this draft, I feel like they're lacking a little bit of late game carry potential here. And I guess that's, you know, coming from these bans from Hydra Nation, that they took both Wraith and Vindicta out of the pool. But now melee creeps, it's like Mirage and Geist. You know, these heroes can snowball and can really take a game over with the help of something like a Viscous. But time and time again in DFN, I feel we've seen teams go for these heavy early game aggressive drafts, and I just haven't really seen it pay off. It feels like teams going a little greedier, just farming up, even if they're a little behind in the early game, they end up finding those big team fights to turn the game around. And I mean, few teams better at that exact strategy than Hydra Nation.
Once again, folks, $1,000 on the line. Thanks to our friends over at Intel here in this Deadlock Fight Night NA number 12. Hydra Nation once more defending their title. Undefeated, as we call them. Melee Creeps once more looking to have a crack at it. If we get the Mo and Krill on Cool Cheese, they currently are the #1 for souls per minute ranked Mo and Krill in North America, even managing to eclipse Hydration at that role, which is not an easy thing to do at all, Jason.
Give context, though. How many matches have this yet?
Look, somewhere between 1 and 5.
I mean, to be fair, the most played in NA is 3 with Young Calc and Hydration, so it's kind of understandable.
Yeah, definitely a little less played. Obviously, a lot of harassment here already going down. Hydra Nation laying it on thick. Melee Creeps giving it back as good as they get here with low main on the Viscous. Throwing constantly, of course, those puddles here just to try and pressure down and also deny some of these creeps as they are getting shoved in under the turret. And Hydration can't do much about it. The puddle punch knocks him out into the open and he almost gets down.
So Jake, we talked about like the expected lanes, or maybe I have to come back to this in a second, as it looks like Saya will be overrun. Low main's going to respond as well, taking down Hydration. But we are seeing it looks like Lord and Hydration work together in lane 2. So the binding words are pretty damn easy to hit now when you have an Arctic Beam. But the fact is, you do have low main there with the Cube.
Yeah, Cube could be nice defensively. I think that's a pretty rough early dive, though, for melee creeps. Not only do all the souls get denied on the kill 1-for-1 that they get, but also low main is ultra low and it's probably going to struggle to recover in this lane. So it looked like a fantastic start for the Viscous. I think is kind of falling apart here. Maybe not completely. See a Lefa patented suicide to the tower to reset his HP after forcing AVG back. I mean, this is a huge snowball. When he lane crashing on the tower, Geist missing a bunch of souls. Lef is going to come back at full strength. I think this lane 4 could get really explosive really quickly if AVG doesn't get help.
That is terrifying. DMB here. Slower start up against Poshy Pop in this solo lane. So the solo Mirage here, of course, Melee Creeps pretty well positioned to maintain relevancy if he has a placid enough laning experience. Of course, DMB, someone you do not want to turn your back on with that Infernus in hand. He's getting a push back though. And he's heading over to buy, of course, but it might just be an issue that he's trying to feign some weakness here. Poshy Bop, though, going to push up, try and take these creeps, taking some liberties here on Hydra Nation's side of the map. DMB trying to intervene.
All right, so this is something we're going to have to keep an eye on because we already saw AVG have a tough time in lane against Lefa as he did die earlier on. And I said before, for melee creeps, like if they want to have a decent chance against Hydra Nation, they have to have these solo lanes to be able to compete. To see Cool Cheese just backing away on very low HP and Axe coming in saying, get away from my holiday. But the fact that Poshy Pop is being confident and he's been able to take tier 1 camps like that in this lane, that's a decent sign because he's going to have to do some heavy lifting if AVG can't get himself back in.
Absolutely. It's going to be a pretty rough game for the Geist if they can't find a way to get relevant in that early game, excuse me. I was going to say the combo, of course, Kinetic Carbine into Pulse Grenade almost account for all of Cool Cheese's health there earlier. They're going very low, such that Time Wall's going to get thrown up there. Spirits there also thrown further down the lane just in case there's a chance for Vegas to catch somewhat out. But the Burrow will get Axe back safely to his side of the map. Lef is in trouble though. Now the pressure's been laid on thick here. AVG wins it out. And elsewhere, the Sire is able to push up onto Vegas just as Hydra Nation look to be very confident in that lane number 3. Out comes the Calico. They pick up a kill, make it 2 as Flick now falls. The pressure is not letting up for Melee Creeps.
Absolutely huge. That's exactly what you need to see AVG do to get himself back in the game, but not to mention all these other kills they just got across the map. So now Melee Creeps, you're ahead by 3K. For them, it's about how can we maintain this? How can we keep the momentum going? Can we get even more kills off this? Can we get some objective control? Cool Cheese, unfortunately, will fall here to Lord and M, but a good, very good start here out of Melee Creeps.
Cheeky using the bounce pad there, Lord and M, after Cool Cheese had already been taken down. Axe maybe lingering a little bit too long there over in that lane number 3 after Saya had that successful 2K with the help of the Mo and Krill, because back off respawn, the Paradox is there. And again, if you get slowed down by the Paradox, there's a good chance you're taking a charged arrow from the Grey Talon, and all of a sudden your health tends to vaporize in that kind of lane. You do need to respect the Kinetic Carbine and its ability to set up those pick opportunities.
And taking a look at AVG's items, he's got extra regen, headshot booster, restorative shot. Like he really is going for these like sustained items that he's going to need since he uses health for these abilities. But obviously with the damage left, that can do the poke he can do on top of that. it's very crucial for him to just maintain his health in lane and make sure he doesn't let Leffa run free. As we do see, speaking of free, the owl come through.
They're trying to kill Axe.
Get quite connected.
Yeah, I think they were hoping to just snipe off the Mo and Krill there. Unfortunately, that's not going to pay off for them here. Pretty close laning here, and you'll notice that some of these Hydra Nation Guardians take a bit of damage after that successful push in lane number 3, which is where we are right now. But outside of that, Axe is playing a dangerous game, lingering for as long as they are, but they bait the engagement in. Here comes Sire, time wall thrown up. Flick able to play pretty safely from behind it, but no paradoxical swap available just yet. So it will be an exchange of damage, and they'll back on out, but here comes a holiday from the top rope and the lasso to catch Vegas. That is yet another elimination in this lane 3 for Sire. Now we're headed over to lane number 1. It's going to be a collapse here onto the Mirage. Hydra Nation trying to give DMB a nice bit of a lead, and Poshipop will be in trouble, eventually dragged down under his Guardian.
I see low main come in, though. Not much he can do, though, in a 1-on-2, so he's just going to have to back away and keep this tower alive the best he possibly can. We also got credit to Cool Cheese. He's constantly been like ganking these lanes on the holiday, really using those jump pads effectively to make sure to show some presence and not allow Hydra Nation to feel comfortable.
Yeah, but look now, this pressure coming from Hydra Nation. They want to take a fight. They know Axe is low, very low. Looks like they took some more Grey Talon damage. And I also want to keep eyes on Cool Cheese, because in a protracted engagement, the holiday is probably not set up to succeed quite yet. They've got to be hitting those consistent headshots, so need to be within a decent range. So they will be pushed yet again under that Guardian. We might see a drift across here by AVG, but elsewhere, Left has made the rotate towards lane 3 already. And here's the push up for Axe. They've definitely signed their own death warrant here. Combo going to be used, though, onto Left. It's going to have to be a shadow transformation now. The invulnerability frame is essential. Power slash doesn't quite connect here. Axe with the burrow, trying to get away. Shadow form now is expired for Left, and he needs to get the heck out of dodge. There was no rotation at any point, though, from AVG. So they've been able to farm up a full wave and shove it under Left's turret, punishing him for that unsuccessful gank on the Yamato. But it's still fighting to be done in mid here. You can see how desperately Low Main wants an engagement, and Poshibop comes in with the tornado. There will be no exchange of kills, though, as DMB will be topped back up on his Frost Grenade, and it's business as usual in what was the solo lane. But Low Main wants to dig a little bit deeper. Puddle Punch to knock DMB out into the open. Charge up a melee hit, but it's cancelled. And melee creeps really don't want to give this Guardian up. They want to get some damage here.
I mean, neither Guardian's been taken on either side somehow, as we're about to hit the 8-minute mark. The parry comes through to Lord NM, and that's going to be Viscous. Low Main. Can he survive?
No way. The goo ball might get him out. Might just escape. No, DMB's going to chase him down. Probably the flame dash helps him to close the gap. Cool Cheese is also in a bit of trouble. No cooldowns here for Flick, but that carbine's back in 7 seconds. The disarm, though, here from Axe is going to force the Paradox away. Leffa, though, goes down against AVG. Now that Geist is starting to become a relevant threat with a decent amount of farm and a 1k soul lead. That is intense fighting. There's still more. Look at how quickly Low Main is trying to get back into the fight in that lane number 1. They are looking to punish DMB, and so they do. Poshipop goes deep, gets cubed under the Guardian, and will live to fight another day. A chance to breathe, a chance to bring Jake in here. As, of course, melee creeps have been able to give as good as they've gotten so far.
Yeah, it's been a decent bloodbath of an early game here with both teams fighting. Kelvin, though, continuing to show up and show presence, matching Viscous in the side lanes, getting DMB back in. And Hydra Nation are going to be relatively comfortable here. I think there's a moment for melee creeps to find an inflection point and really start scaling, but it's not quite yet, as the tower's still being held on to by Hydra Nation with solid macro. I think once tier 1 start to drop, maybe there's more window for Mo and Krill and Calico to really start lighting this game up with their roams.
I don't want to let you go too quick just yet, Jake, because one thing I'm noticing in this game, Saya is doing a good job of pressuring Hydration. Like, he's had him low a couple of times. He's also sticking around in lane and not allowing Hydration just to get like full free farm and potentially objectives. And I like how melee creeps are kind of doing that. I was wanting to hear your thoughts, because it's been Cool Cheese by the one to look for these ganks.
Yeah, Warden pops the ult for now, though, and, you know, isn't seemingly able to find too much off the back of it. But I think you're right. Like, they're basically just matching Hydration and kind of one for one in his strategy. If Hydration stays in the lane and gets farmed up, well, then we're going to have a Calico, you know, matching on that same front. But this one moment, they switch it up, and now it's starting to get a little bit worrisome with a few kills going the way of Hydra Nation here across the lanes.
I mean, we're looking at Left, one of the, most individually talented players in North America, but this matchup just seems brutal at this stage, as AVG's putting that pressure on big time. Again, looks like Axe is always looking for a bit of a fight. They do have combo available, but don't feel like it's time to go for it just yet. There's a drift across here from Leffa, but it's because they're being chased away from that lane 4. Hydration falls to Saya, though. That was a straight up 1 versus 1 in lane number 2. Buffs are up, though. Survival buff picked up here by Flick. And, of course, that means that our mid boss have all joined the fray.
I don't want to jump the gun on this just yet, but that kill out of Saya, I feel like is actually a lot bigger than we potentially can expect it to be, or that we see at the moment, because Hydration, it was just so good at just maximizing his farm and getting into these fights later on to really punish. Great little frozen shelter going to be coming through. And I don't know how Pashi's going to escape this, but eventually the frozen shelter falls. Low main's going to come through as well with the goo ball. And it looks like those ults just not really going to amount to much. But go quickly back to Hydration. Like, he's used to just farming up and then joining these fights and just overpowering teams. But he's being kept in check so well by Saya. And I really have to point that out and give him credit.
That's going to be one of the biggest matchups in this game. Oh, the power slash for Lefer is so clutch. AVG, even with the health swap, wasn't enough to start that fight in their favor. That was an epic battle. Between the Yamato, of course, and that Lady Geist. Here, though, more fighting to be done. Hydration going to be knocked up now into the last stand. Do they have the health to stay alive long enough? Saya simply can return to the shadows and pop out for a bit of burst damage to secure yet another kill on Hydration's Warden. No one wants to fight Flick in this lane 3 right now, though, as Axe has to opt out of the engagement. Cool Cheese is very low, but in comes AVG, farmed as fudge and ready to throw down. I think Flick has a sixth sense about it, rather, as they want to back up. Here's some big damage, though, from the skies. The power slash connecting on towards the retreating Holiday as Cool Cheese gets away just with their life intact. And Axe is always harassing, always coming in to disarm, then burrow away, keeping Hydra Nation interested in what's going on over here. There's the paradoxical swap by the looks of things. The emergence there, though, came out from Axe. They are a little bit low and they don't have ultimate available, so they're just trying to get the heck out. Here's our charge to 1 abilities. Axe takes a big hit. The Q comes in and try and keep them alive. Puddle punch to knock Vegas off. Kill to just a little bit. The Hydra Nation don't want to fully commit under this tower. Here come melee creeps yet again. Some salvos from the sky, but Flick ends up dropping. Cool Cheese finds that elimination, and now Lord NM is in trouble. Vegas forced to back away as well as melee creeps hold their own yet again in lane 3, securing a 3k soul lead.
How do they not lose a single player? My God, Cool Cheese is extremely low by Vegas, sitting in the air, just trying to snipe him down. Axe comes in, ults onto Lefa to prevent Lefa from chasing. Cool Cheese gets away. Then Axe buys enough time for low main to come in and cube him, and eventually for the rest of melee creeps to pick up 2 kills. Like, that was insane, and that is something Hydra Nation can do so well in like this mid game of taking like a little victory like that. If they would have killed Cool Cheese and Axe and snowball that, a fantastic turnaround. And melee creeps, I mean, I think they're just showing they're working really well as a team.
Okay, we see some big pressure here, though, in lane 3. Hydra Nation might want to even imply they fancy some action on that Walker. Elsewhere, Hydration shoving this side. We have a Traveler across the map here. Poshy Pop's looking to get into a big fight here over in lane 1. The Walker is under threat, and melee creeps are really trying to lay it on thick here. AVG just playing from the rafters now, as Flick can't really do anything to stop this Lady Guys from peppering the Walker down. They do get up on the rafters, but I see the soul exchange available here for AVG, and I think Flick is well aware of that fact. They opt out of the fight, so Lady Guys will be left to her own devices up here for now.
Just trying to buy some time. I mean, I think he knows he's most likely going to be dead, or at least trying to pull off a 1v1 here. Gets swapped out and right into the shot, the power shot out of Geist.
The soul exchange, though, is huge. Geist back up to 14k health. That was Vegas that had their health swapped, but the frost grenade is pretty darn clutch there. AVG still able to find Vegas. Yep, that's
and died
pretty
over
gross.
time. Oh my God, how does he still come out with 1 kill like that? Like, that should just never happen.
Well, Vegas came in with 1400 health and they ended up with 250. The desperate healing of the Kelvin wasn't enough to keep them alive. So yeah, Lady Guys pretty cracked in situations like that. Oh, good connection here, though, from Lefa, showing off some of those mechanics. Cool Cheese, though, will be safe under their Walker after taking a power slash, and DMB, we hardly knew ye. Okay, Binding Word, though, might lock Saya down. They don't have ultimate available, so they are stuck inside that one. But there's not really much more the Hydration can do here. They're going to back away. They didn't really want to take a fight against Poshy Pop, even though there was the Grey Talon nearby.
Yeah, one thing we haven't really looked at when it comes to the 1v1 with Saya, really quickly, we see AVG go down here. Saya up against Hydration is that from the shadows, it's such a good ultimate, or such a good ability to use to counter the last stand out of warding, because it just makes you unhittable, so he can't life steal off of you and heal back up. And then you pop out to do even more damage. So it's actually fairly well done here out of Saya. The problem is they've let Hydration farm up in lane 1. He's currently sitting at 15k to Saya's 14k, so he's actually been able to get ahead from all of this, even though, actually no, there are going to be equal in objectives, so it's not like he's getting extra gold from anywhere else.
But yeah, he has spent a remarkable amount of time over there, and not to really the detriment of Hydra Nation in general. I don't really know if melee creeps have a mechanism with which to, punish that. But at this point, melee creeps are down to their final guardian. It is Hydra Nation, obviously, without a walker, so that is of concern. But melee creeps have had all their guardians down here, so at least that one flex slot is available. What's AVG looking for here? Just to shove, of course, into this lane persistently. But there is a Mo and Krill that's between lanes 3 and 4, so AVG will have some backup if there's any push down from Hydra Nation.
Can we quickly go back to AVG? I want to see his abilities because he maxed his 1. And typically you don't see guys max 1 anymore, the Essence Bomb, because you want to be able to have the extra charges of life drain. So that's actually a little bit of an adaptation I guess he went for, which is why he's able to do so much damage and potentially do so much damage to left foot and lane with the poke. And maybe went with the extra regen items as well.
Could also be like they want like a lane push as well, with like the damage over time that you get. A max rank. Sai though gets caught out there. Not much to say about it, and not really much that AVG could do to help. Hydra Nation just turned up with the whole squad and laid the smackdown. Also in lane number 3, Hydra Nation have the player advantage here now, and Axe is not able to get out of the range of the binding word. They do burrow. Eventually, though, what goes down must come up, they say, and Axe is going to have to try and hot-foot it away. They've got combo available, but they are very much on their own, and that kinetic carbine stops them in time briefly. But Hydra Nation want to be elsewhere, maybe sensing that they've overstayed their welcome. They are going to drop back away from that Mo and Krill.
They still are slowly picking up a lead. I mean, they're up 4k now. Melee creeps, I think they had a 3k lead at some point, maybe about 5 minutes ago. And that just, again, goes to the power of how consistent they are. I mean, Hydration, he's up to 18k now up against size 16. And he's just been consistently getting around for these boxes. I think it's been said multiple times by ZP that, I think ZP and DDK, that he is definitely one of the best players when it comes to knowing the timings of everything and having these really good set paths to make sure to maximize the amount of souls per minute that he possibly can get. And he's just creating a lead up against the person who was pretty much keeping him locked down in lane.
A lot of warp stones getting picked up here. I see 4 of them in the last minute and a half or so. Also, the point blank coming in here for Hydration, so getting farmed up and definitely looking like a real threat up close. Okay, here's the lasso. Catching out the Grey Talon. Lomain brought down to earth, but here's a paradoxical swap now being deployed by Flick. And in comes Lord of M. Frozen Shelter is going to catch the holiday. That was probably a little bit of overkill. Kill secured, folks. Yep, they got the holiday. Make no mistake. And now there's more fighting to be done here because over towards the mid-boss direction, we have 3 melee crew players grouped up, and they, Hydra Nation that is, are on the hunt. Arctic being here for Axe, and there is no way that this guy's gonna be able to walk away. They have to try and warp zone out of the fight, but Axe is so low here, and on their heels is Flick. They'll be credited with the kill, and that is going to be a 2-for-0 trade, and Hydra Nation now are threatening mid-boss.
This is not going to be easy, though. AVG has a lot of damage, and the area they're fighting from can allow him to put a lot of pump down. I guess you do have Lord and M to heal a lot of this, but the poke's going to be very, very good here in Hydra Nation. I don't expect them to fully commit to this necessarily, but they're going to be going for it here. The Rejuvenator is going to be dropping, and melee creeps, they have to go in. They're not going to let this one go for free.
Here's the swap. Shadow transformation from Lefery standing over the Rejuvenator itself. The concussive combustion gets popped, and DMB's able to take Saya down. Flick does fall with a Rejuve win over to Hydra Nation. They have the player advantage. Melee creeps down to 2 for a moment. Axe was never even there. They're spawning back in a little bit later now. It's just Poshy Pop and Axe left on the map, and DMB has done his job well and truly. Getting rid of Sire at the start of that fight, for whatever reason, they weren't able to use the Return to the Shadows to avoid the explosion from that concussive combustion. So Hydra Nation, I don't know, it's a B+ from me, Jason. Rejuve picked up, they didn't throw it, and they came out pretty heftily in the lead in terms of the kill trade.
That combustion, I think, hit 3 people who were trying to get that Rejuvenator. It was perfect out of him. And then he goes for the immediate take on it right after, not allowing melee creeps to go for that steal. And melee creeps, I think they only have like 4 players there, and they still brought it relatively close. But as ZP's pointing out, I mean, you're seeing Hydration, 22k souls. He's blown up a massively left foot 22k souls on top of that. And we talk time and time again about Hydra Nation. They feed souls to these 2 players every single time they play because they know that these 2 can carry. And it's just kind of insane to see that they're starting to build up a really big lead and become very difficult to deal with.
I mean, yeah, Hydration there has just added the pristine emblem to the arsenal alongside the Titanic magazine. So Yeah, definitely investments in that gun damage over pretty consistent pressure in these fights. Mystic Reverb also being picked up for AVG at this point of the game, likely their first tier 4 item. So very, very strong, especially when the poke comes in. Great wave clear, and also in the fight, it is pretty handy. It's consistent AoE damage rating out from targets that are hit by the Geist.
Also, DMB did go for the dash build. He didn't go to Max's 3 for like the dual potential or just in general team fight damage. I guess the dash does a lot of team fight damage. So he's definitely playing like the build where I'm going to just split push on you. And if you try to gank me, I'm going to be very mobile and very difficult to actually pull off the kill onto. So slowing hexes are needed to deal with him. And I don't really think you're going to be able to deal with him too well here with the way he plays.
Again, we've seen a number of heroes pick up slowing hex without any great like opportunity cost in terms of the rest of their build. See if that ends up being relevant here. Okay, we want a bit of a fight. DMB fancies it. Here's the flame dash, good damage, of course. Soul Exchange is available, and still a warp stone is going to be able to get AVG out of trouble. So it's posturing there from DMB for the most part, but it does signal a lot of pressure. Owl comes on in there. Does it find AVG? It does. Nice connection, and the stun is good, but the follow-up is non-existent.
He's got that warp stone ready for the soul exchange. In the meantime, we do see Sai being pushed on and from the shadows, and back to spawn is where he's going to be going as he gets chased down by the 2 most fed players out of Hydra Nation. And what? No, he actually gets away.
Yeah.
Oh, Ava.
I mean, in the Ava form. Yeah, you don't have to fight. You just run the heck away. And again, he can't be seen on the map, so it's really annoying to try and find them. Lord NM here lingers a little bit, maybe pushing this wave up after DMB had already vacated lane 4, headed over to number 3. So, okay, maybe just a little bit of time lag there in getting the memo in terms of Hydra Nation's movements across the map. A little bit of macro fail. We don't often see that from Hydra Nation, but hey, obviously that is their newest player still fitting into their protocols and structures. So, no dramas.
That's not even like the Walker was low either. I could give him the excuse if like the Walker was
trying to pick it off. Yeah.
Yeah, easily, right? It wouldn't give him a flex slot, but at least gets him some objective control. But also, looking at DMB, like he almost took down AVG pretty damn easily in that 1v1. I don't think DMB has a warp stone if I remember correctly, which makes things a little bit difficult if AVG does teleport in with it and soul exchange. But he's putting out some really serious damage, and I mean, this is what DMB does. He pushes lanes, he does objective damage, and if you're not honest about the way he's doing this, you're not keeping him honest, I should say, then he's just going to take your entire base from you.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's nothing honest about the split pushing, in fairness. I'll be real with you. And again, like it's a good sign for Hydra Nation fans that DMB's now feeling like he's in a position to straight up fight the Lady Geist, who of course was exploiting Leffa pretty brutally in lane. But obviously we've seen this lead go out a fair bit here. 22 minutes, of course, into the game. And we see some pings over towards that right side of the map here, Jake. So a mild lull. I think we have a fight brewing here, Jake, but Hydra Nation have managed to develop a real lead here across the map.
Yeah, and we talked about, their dedication of so many souls to hydration and Leffa. I think also one thing that's very consistent with them is they're always on opposite damage types. So there's always one as gun, one as spirit to ensure that you can't efficiently block both of them. I mean, Jesus, look at hydration when he pops all his mobility. I mean, he's got this insane movement speed. And while Yamato is going to tank all these stuns and control with the ultimate, right? With the Warden, his wonder is like, how do you catch him? It feels like combo is the only way. And I got to imagine Hydration's going to be getting unstoppable pretty soon. And that could be the timing where Hydra Nation look to really press this and look to clean up some more walkers.
Bruh, the slowing hex, the cold front, the fleet foot, and the heroic aura here for Hydration. It's all about the schmoves, either making him go faster or you go slower.
And there's so many, like, you want to ult him as Crow, but you also want to ult Leffa. Like, you maybe even want to ult Lord NM so he can't frozen shelter, or DMB so he doesn't, like, run around the entire fight. There's just so many targets for Axe to try to ult that there's really not one good choice, which makes it so much harder to really get that first kill and snowball thereafter.
Okay, that was a concussive combustion popped there by DMB. They're going to be in trouble. Cool Cheese is definitely a relevant threat here in terms of being able to do damage, even though they're mostly invested in utility at this point in the game. Sai here trying to piece out, being slowed down, of course, by the pursuing Lord NM and co. Now we'll get back to their side of the map here. So Hydra Nation definitely looking for a fight. Been looking for a couple of engagements. DMB, I think, was reminded of their own mortality in that little stash with Cool Cheese, even though they're 5k souls ahead. They're not quite at that terrifying critical mass we we can see Infernus's get to at some point in the game. Still early days, 25 minutes into the game, and a 13k gold, a soul lead, excuse me, for Hydra Nation.
And you're seeing both teams play kind of slow right now and try to go for these like picks because they both realize it's going to be a mid boss after this. Like it's going to be spawning very, very soon. You don't want to lose on a big team fight here, and Sai unfortunately just gets bursted completely without a chance.
Yeah, it looked like they were trying to ultimate, but there was no way. Stuck in the frozen shelter, it probably wouldn't have mattered anyway.
Oh, nice push though. Melee creeps going on to lane 1. This would get him another flex slot.
This might force Hydra Nation into taking 2 walkers though, if they can. Okay, they group up for a mid boss. Walker for mid boss? Okay. When you're melee creeps and you can't really fight for mid boss, realistically, you probably don't feel terrible about this. But they will be looking for a steal here, so hold on to your hats, folks. It's about to get a little bit messy. Low man turns up, of course. A little bit of pressure being put down. The shadow transformation from Leffer, of course, has to be used. Final stand also active. And an easy rejuve take, along with Cool Cheese being eliminated. Now it's a matter of melee creeps not getting completely wiped off the map in exchange for this. Vegas goes down, but that's not the biggest issue, as the Grey Talon is not exactly the centerpiece of this composition. Tornado away here for Poshy Pop. They've overstayed their welcome in DMB. They'll be starting to get a little bit low. There's an opening here for melee creeps to get a little bit more aggressive, but straight into the face of Poshy Pop now is the rest of Hydra Nation getting. Axe has gone down, so their lockdown potential is now taken off the table, and Leffer is still on the hunt. This Yamato is getting out of hand. Both Leffer and Hydration at 31k souls, and the rejuve will, of course, bring Vegas back into the fold pretty quickly.
You know, I'm looking at this, and I'm wondering, because AVG, he does have Mystic Reverb. And maybe Jake wants to get some thoughts on this. I feel like if you're a guy, obviously Mystic Reverb is a very good item to take. But to put it on as 1, to me, says like you want to be poking a lot before you do force an engage. But then to have a Mo and Krill, it means you like want to catch someone and confirm a kill. I'm not sure necessarily how I feel about it just yet, because they're not really being given a chance to poke. When you have Hydration, you can immediately get in your face with how fast he is.
Yeah, I mean, the Mystic Reverb, I think if you're gonna max the 1, then you're just probably putting it on whatever skill you're maxing on Geist. I can see it on the 3rd skill just as easily. Could be strong. I do like the Soul Siphon max on Geist. I feel like that's the best for that durability and that frontlining, but maybe melee creeps in this game with Geist, it's like maybe you don't really need as much frontlining as you had in other games. You've got Viscous, you've got Mo, you've got Calico. Maybe what you need is actually a little more range poke, and from that perspective, I think the Mystic Reverb fits this game well.
Hey, the magic carpet for the Mo and Krill has been purchased, folks. Also, refresher here for Kelvin. So again, Lord and M following the footsteps of Quick in the past on this Hydra Nation team, looking for a lot of those frozen shelters. And a lot of healing too as well from, you know, the double grenades in these fights, or from more than double, excuse me, because there's multiple charges. So that seems pretty annoying.
He's got an abundance of healing. I mean, if you're using the frozen shelter for catches, it works. If you use it just to heal your team, you have 2 of them. Like, they're going to be back to full HP if you do get anyone low, which it kind of, you know, does a decent job of counteracting AVG and the damage that he's going to be pulling off with his 1 maxed. And this is looking from bad to worse here for melee creeps. This is going to be Poshy Pop to go down. The Owl comes in to catch up Cool Cheese as well, so they can burst him down in Hydration, just try to charge forward, but gets hooked forward. And eventually backed away with the help of the rescue beam.
I'm shocked that Cool Cheese Jason stayed alive as long as they did in the end there after eating an hour while they were on the rope itself. Speaking of on the ropes, that's exactly where melee creeps find themselves. They are under a lot of pressure here as these base bosses start to get some attention. But of course, the last walker will be an easy pickup now for all of Hydra Nation as they just rotate through there quickly. And this is where we start to get pretty serious. We're at DEFCON 1 here for melee creeps now, as that soul, the deficit is growing by the moment. And still rejuve buff now just expiring on Hydra Nation, but they sure as hell got their value for it. And now with all this map control, Jason, they can just split up and eat these camps.
Oh yeah, and Hydration and Leffer are going to be eating very, very good tonight here, man. 37 to 39,000 souls between these two. The only one even close to them is AVG on the other side, and he's lost the ability to kill Leffa. And I don't think he has a sustained damage to deal with Hydration either. It's come down for melee creeps. You don't really have like a hyper carry, like a Wraith or something like that, an Infernus. You just don't have a way to deal with these 2 players. So the front line that Hydra Nation have with the sustain out of Lord NM and the stun out of Vegas to open things up and a swap out of Flick, like, it's going to be tough. It's going to be almost impossible for melee creeps to win this with the way that Hydra Nation are playing.
It just goes from bad to worse, right? Their soul lead is so rough. We obviously can see Hydration and Leffer in very good shape, but also all of melee creeps' ability to safely farm has essentially been denied for them. You see the little blue arrows? Yeah, you don't, because they're all just got ate up by Hydra Nation. All those neutral camps on the way out, they've absolutely ransacked the place like they're envoys of the Ottoman Empire, folks. It's that bad. They are struggling, choked out for farm, and Hydra Nation are continuing to eat well. Still, we haven't seen many trips back to base yet for them. They're still sort of maintaining presence in the middle of the map and not wanting to give too much up for free. 30k soul lead, and Leffer is now probably past the point of no return as far as melee creeps are concerned, Jason. He is full raid boss mode.
Even with the debuff remover on top of this, so if he gets stunned up or something, he can quickly cleanse that and then get his shadow transformation off if he needs. Big walker pickup though for melee creeps in the meantime, taking down the lane 3 walker, even though they did lose 2 players. And I think one advantage that melee creeps do have is that if Hydra Nation are going to fight you, if you're defending out your own base, they have to dive you. Obviously, having left hydration this far ahead makes it relatively easy, but you have so much wave clear to prevent them from getting in with minions.
He tried to go for the O pickup. I respect it, but it was an instant paradoxical swap, and Flick just picked up the urn and said, you know, I think I'll be taking that. Your urn, my urn. Same thing, really. Leffer here. Okay, it's Hydration that ends up getting comboed, so not the worst result here. Shadow transformation now for Leffer, and he's hitting like an absolute truck. That is Axe very quickly turning tail and running. My goodness, Flick really taking the long way around for this urn turning. They are on the scenic route.
Exactly, man. Just having a good time. They're thinking about, you know, what am I going to do with my extra $1,000 this week? At least with the way they're playing now. And they're also going to be forcing some fights. I mean, that refresher Frozen Shelter here is going to be pretty damn big for Loden if they want to commit to it. The thing is, they have no other objectives to take, like no walkers, no guardians. So you can't really bait the team towards this direction. And you don't have rejuvenators, so it's not like your minions are going to be pushing the base either. So it's just trying to, I don't know, just deny it away from melee creeps, not realistically turn it in.
We see here a luxury investment for Flick in the crippling headshot. Something that you can, of course, go for, because shredding those resistances when you have Hydration and Leffer are so fed on your team is a good idea. Mid-boss here being attempted by melee creeps. Out of hubris or delusion, no one really knows. Still, they're going to have to pull off of it eventually now as DMB went for that concussive combustion, and Poshipop finds himself on the back foot here, literally and figuratively. Just trending back here in this lane number 3 as Hydra Nation start to close the vice grip around their jugular. Binding Word looks like it managed to catch a target here, and Leffer goes very, very deep. Low main is being pursued to the ends of the earth, apparently, as DMB has got his jaws in, and he won't be letting go. Melee creeps to the ragdoll, and Hydra Nation on the angry pitbull has this Justimo and Krill remaining, whilst our crew on the amber side look to push in and get some more of these objectives.
I respect it. They realize we're so far behind. We have to do something crazy. And the crazy thing was, let's try to bait them out at mid-boss. Let's try to make it scream, get one of them caught off guard, and potentially try to snowball the game from there. But as we saw, Hydration come in just a little bit too cleanly. They get the wipe. They're going to get mid-boss while getting the base at the same time. And Hydra Nation, I mean, this should be, bar a massive couple of mistakes out of them, their first map in the series.
Yeah, and for those that are interested, we'll flash you the total number of kills in just a moment now while we've got a bit of a lull here. But the game's probably not too far from ending, folks, as the patron is about to be knocked. There's another urn behind this that is being turned in. Rejuve is just chilling here. What's the thinking on waiting for this?
I actually don't know. I think they're just trying to maximize the time they have.
Yeah, this is really smart. You're not gonna fight right now, right? So and there's no one, every single player dead on the map, no chance for a steal. So you just take the rejuve as late as possible, give yourself maximum possible time to look for fights when the team is actually going to engage you.
Yeah, we really
not waste any of that rejuve time. Yeah, that's a pretty sick min max. They did every objective on the map, by the way, with that team wipe.
Yeah, every base guarding down. Excuse me. Shrines also hammered. There is some left on that lane number 4, but we're splitting hairs at this point as Hydra Nation have just basically, again, every source of souls that was available to them in the melee creeps base they took comfortably. And so now it is the Boa Constrictor wrapping around, looking to end the game. Colossus picked up for your Infernus. That's pretty good. Refresher also on the Yamato. Yes, please. More of that. Thank you. We're getting the luxury items here. Superior Stamina also going to be picked up for DMB, so he'll be chasing. He'll be also running away. It'll be pretty impossible to pursue him, of course, especially with that Colossus ready. So he's got the build to stand right in the middle of these fights here, slowing people down who surrounds him, of course, while that ability is active, is a real nuisance. And of course, you don't want to try and burst down the Infernus. Anyway, here's a shadow transformation. They thought Leffa was caught in there with them, but it's quite the opposite. He, though, will make a quick exit over towards the fight here in lane number 2. It was Saya going down first. That was the Calico, who really wasn't able to be very impactful outside the first 10 minutes. And a refresher into yet another shadow transformation means that Leffa can go all day. Viscus is down. AVG is going to collapse under the sheer weight of shurikens being lodged in their flesh. And this weakened patron will now meet their maker as Hydra Nation. A pretty stately start to this game, but once again, and as always, they finish in style, taking away our first map of this best of 3 in our $1,000 money match.
I think we did see that they can bleed in the beginning. I think Melee Creeps did a very good job in the beginning dealing with Leffa. AVG did a great job, able to get the kill head-to-head up against him and able to push that lane up to that Walker on top of it. But the problem is you let Hydration farm, you let Leffa farm, and they're eventually going to get that little bit of a lead they need to start taking these fights hands down. And I feel like Melee Creeps did such a good job early game in terms of like denying kills. Remember that there was Cool Cheese being chased. Axe comes in to save him on the Moa and Krill. Axe gets away because Low Main comes on the Viscus to save his life. They did a really good job of communicating and like out-rotating the way Hydra Nation were playing. But that one slip is all they need.
It's crazy, isn't it? Teams like Hydra Nation can to really take that one mistake and punish you, never let it go, and basically cancel you out there in the cursed apple for that one thing you said on Twitter 20 years ago. Let's bring Jake in here to talk about how that game went down, because I think to the untrained eye, the inflection point in this game was probably a little hard to spot, especially because there was so much fighting going back and forth in that lane phase as we transition to start to look towards objectives. Where for you do you start to see Hydra Nation really get out into a lead?
I mean, I think it's all around what they get out of these victorious team fights, right? We saw like in the early laning phase, there's good moments here for the guys able to kill Leffa. It'll put some pressure on him. But then when we get into this mid game and we got to start seeing more and more players involved in the team fights, I mean, Leffa masterfully turned it back here in this moment. And it just feels like, you know, yes, you can, there's teams that can go even with Hydra Nation in the early game when it comes to their raw, just deathmatch last hitting ability. These teams can absolutely compete. But when we get into the late game, when we get into these like bigger team fights, drawing more rotations, Hydra Nation is just masterful at always bringing the right number of players. Here we're seeing like Melee Creeps brought a few players, thought they were taking control of this lane, and then Hydra Nation just immediately upped the ante, had like 3 times as many players coming in to help out, and they turned it around, get kills, take over that part of the map. Hydra Nation also didn't take walkers very late into this game. All 4 walkers were up for Melee Creeps very deep into the game. I think that's really smart from Hydra Nation because they had the much better late game draft. They had no need of taking risks and sieging walkers early. They just continued to farm up until they reached a point where they're coming online. They're ready to fight at critical mass.
The late game draft part, I think, is something we didn't touch on too much in the beginning because you did see AVG, he can get ahead, but like, can Geist carry when you're 30 minutes into the game? And realistically, no, whereas Yamato and Hydration on the Warden can kind of do that. They didn't have anyone else who could kind of put out that extra damage they needed. Saya fell behind compared to Hydration when he was keeping him check initially in lane 2, and you didn't have that other player you needed to make plays happen.
I mean, yeah, pretty impressive stuff here. We're going to obviously look at our end game screen. It definitely was a situation of Leffa having his way with the opposition as well. Hydration also getting farmed up. You can see just the amount of total souls that went onto those players. And I think Jake points it out pretty well. What I love about Hydra Nation is that they never bring too little players to a fight, Jake, but they also never bring too many. They always have players elsewhere freed up on the map, either to continue to get more farm like Hydration or to like take an objective in reprisal. Okay, so they might lose an engage. We get pushed under their tower in lane 4. Well, Hydration is pushed into lane 1. He's killed the Guardian, or he's farming up hugely. It feels like you can never trade evenly. It's like the house always wins, and Hydra Nation are like the blackjack dealer that never actually lets you get ahead in the long run, no matter how often you're like interacting with them or exchanging blows. They just always seem to eke out these incremental value advantages against you that add up and eventually hit a critical mass and snowball out of control.
Yeah, and we always talk about how they put so many resources into Hydration and Leffa and how well those guys use those souls in the late game to convert wins, convert objectives. But right now, looking at this stat screen, I'm looking at Kelvin and Grey Talon, who are doing more with less, right? Like not getting the farm prio, forced into fight in way more engagements. Look at them, 21 assists apiece. That's huge, massive kill involvement from both the Talon and the Kelvin. So Lord NM slotting in incredibly well, doing a great job managing the frozen shelters. Felt like had such secure team fights playing around the frozen shelter, always able to win. I mean, and with one death on the Kelvin, pretty much every time he's showing up, he's turning the fight in his favor. And then the Talon is second only to Geist in terms of raw hero damage. And Geist is a hero who's, like you guys were saying, she's spamming these grenades, she's spamming skills across the map. Putting down damage, yes, but a lot of it isn't so relevant in the team fight, where Vegas is able to deliver a lot of these big burst damage, even building things like knockdown to assist the catch for his teammates, and then able to deliver massive damage despite being quite significantly less farmed than his teammates. Still able to make it work, not really need that farm, not needing to build too much tankiness, playing around his position, playing around assistance from the teammates. I mean, this is an anger at Hydra Nation. This is as good as I've seen them play in the last few weeks. They may have lost to a cheater last time, but I think it still woke them up. Unfortunately, maybe snatching the chance for some of these NA teams who've been trying to catch Hydra Nation getting complacent. Right now, they look anything but.
What worries me for other teams going forward is like we're still not really seeing, I feel like, Hydra Nation reach down into the bottom of their player or of their hero pool bag, right? They're still just playing things we see every single week. We're not seeing them change things up too drastically because honestly, they haven't needed to. There's not been a lot of teams out there that's been able to challenge them and push them to the brink. And then when one team does, albeit with a cheater, they still practice even harder and come back even stronger the week after.
Well, there you have it, folks. It's a pretty convincing game one win for Hydra Nation. A game, though, that stretched on a little bit. They really played to their late game formula, did Hydra Nation. About 35 minutes of gameplay, but still the Amber hand were crowned victorious. It's best of 3, though, so still that $1,000 still on the line. Melee Creeps need to make a great game 2 of it, though, to stay alive, to avoid, of course, being swept out of this match and awarded yet another crown over to the Hydras. They've got almost as many crowns as heads at this point. Stick around. We'll be back for more Deadlock in your Fight Night for NA presented by Intel after this. All right, folks, map 2 is just around the corner. This best of 3 with $1,000 on the line. Courtesy, of course, my friends at Intel. I'm just thinking a couple of years into the future, guys. You know what I mean? We're going to have Lamborghinis. We're going to have models on our arms. Mine's going to be a Gundam. I'm going to be sat in my basement, actually, because esports will have chewed me up, spit me out, bit me off stage. But right now, we're in the present. We're living here. It's Hydra Nation, of course, with a pretty strong showing, I think, as far as their showings go, and these money matches have been, with a very dominant showing. 35 minutes in that first game. They come out on top, despite Melee Creeps looking pretty good early on. Like you said, Jake, there have been plenty of teams that have stood toe-to-toe with Hydra Nation when it comes to like the dueling in lane, and keeping up in terms of the early farm. But once it comes to just map coverage and general macro gameplay, everyone seems to play second fiddle to this powerhouse team.
Yeah, and they look as good as they've ever looked, right? In the past few weeks, I felt there were moments where I felt, man, this is Hydra Nation not at their best. Like, they look beatable, they look off their game, but right, yeah, like they bringing Lord NM in. Oh, tongue twister for me there. But he did fantastically in that first game, right? He was at every fight they needed him at. One death on the Kelvin, showing that his rotations are perfectly timed. The team is really coordinated, playing around that. Not ever bringing your team fight hero to a losing team fight is a crazy situation to be in. And as much as that game went relatively long, I think that the length is deceptive, frankly, because honestly, Hydra Nation, after probably about the 20-minute mark, it felt like it was just their game to lose. They were in full control. They're kind of like, they could have maybe pushed and to take walkers earlier. They just chose not to, knowing that they have a later game draft. They played for their win condition, full discipline. And that's a scary thing. I think Hydra Nation, you're hoping for them to be undisciplined as an opponent, right? You're hoping for them to be overconfident, cocky, forcing fights they don't need to force. And that they didn't do that at all in this last match. And they just crushed Melee Creeps. Yeah,
I mean, that's a great point, right? The game dragged on because Hydra Nation methodically went back and picked the map to pieces. Every neutral
I kind of want to jump in there because I don't have the average time it takes for them to win, but I feel like that was probably one of their longer games, maybe due to the fact, obviously, besides the fact you brought up, Jacob, like you're playing, a Yamato who does really well late game. But I feel like Melee Creeps did a really good job early on, not allowing hydration left, but to get the lead they normally would have at those stages in the game. to snowball. So I feel like Melee Creeps actually like kind of delayed it a little bit by being a lot more proactive in the early game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the laning phase, when it comes to just like last hitting deathmatch mechanics where everyone's more or less stuck in their lanes, Melee Creeps went just about even with Hydra Nation. Like you said, maybe even a bit ahead coming out of that laning phase. But the real trouble is like as soon as we started to get team fights, as soon as we brought in the element of rotations, people using their zipline speed amps to show up to fights more, teams grouping for objectives, that's where Hydra Nation just started to eat them alive. And so as soon as we really got into a team game, that's where I felt, wow, Hydra Nation is just so much better. So on an individual basis, I agree. I think Melee Creeps are strong players, have performed well. Hydra Nation as a team, I think that's the real advantage, right? It's easy to look at people like Left and Hydration, think about, oh, like their farm is so crazy, and they're hyper carrying the game. I think really Hydra Nation, you got to look across the team to see their strength. There's the reason we see Lefa and Hydration so far ahead so consistently is that the team puts them there, right? And they're obviously the players who can take that sole lead and convert consistent wins, can play those late game team fights perfectly. Obviously they're a huge part of the team's success, but the fact that they're in that position comes from the mid-game team fighting, the communication for people to show up together at these crucial moments and win where it actually matters, where there's objectives on the line.
There are like different scales on which we want to assess these teams' macro gameplay, right? That one scale I think is, maybe just bouncing between adjacent lanes, right? Maybe you're drifting across from lane 3 to 4, leaving one player there to try and help the solo laner out. And then there's a macro where it's like 3 people grouping up to try and push a walker in another lane while the rest of the team are like fighting, or they're taking neutral creeps, or they're also trying to push lanes of their own. And I think the jump between both of those, or from the first to the second rather, is quite significant, right? It's almost a different skill set that's required, because it's less about like just trying to give a player an advantage in a lane and just have local numbers advantage, and more so about what can we afford to give for like the intrinsic amount of souls that a walker gives, or have we pushed the lanes enough here in order to give us the ability to get an easy earn turn in, and a ton of other factors around the buffs and also mid boss, which I feel like we really only scratched the surface of in so many of these discussions, right? We have time, thankfully, because it wouldn't be a Deadlock Fight Night in NA without Hydra Nation, one of their players falling into the toilet in between games 1 and game 2. So
well, I can jump in more on this, because when I'm thinking about like 2 weeks ago, when we had Hydration playing Shiv, and I can remember he was just pushing lane 2, getting as much farm as possible, and no one on the enemy side at that time could kill him. No one could 1v1 him. So either they would have to overcommit, sending like 2-3 players to take him on, which he still had a decent chance of escaping, or have enough players nearby to help him out. But here, I feel like Saya actually did a really good job of keeping him kind of in check, because in those games like 2 weeks ago, he would be able to kill his opponent in the lane. He would be able to push objectives and build even more of a lead for his team, that they could use that as like a big jumping off point to really start to snowball the game. So I really want to give a shout to Saya to be able to pull it off, but I feel like he got pulled away from that lane. He wasn't mirroring Hydration anymore. We saw Hydration eventually go to like lane 1 to continue to get farm. And because he wasn't being pressured, he was being given this free farm, he was able to start, build up lead. Obviously, the whole team fight aspect of it does go a long ways as well. But I just wanted to like point out that little bit of a not engage, but micro interactiveness between these two players. I don't even think interactive is the right word. But I feel like Saya like definitely deserves some credit being able to keep Hydration in check for sure.
Here's some moments. I mean, very quickly, how do you guys feel Lord and M is fitting in so far? I mean, I think we, didn't really get a chance to mention them unless they were doing something nice. There was that dirty little parry in lane earlier on here, but as far as I'm concerned, they seem to be fitting in just fine.
Too early to tell for me, to be honest. I mean, when you have a team like this who's been undefeated in NA, you could slot me in as a support role, and they probably still win some of these games.
Sure.
Yeah, but fair. At the same time, I mean, Lord NM ultra low deaths in that last game, despite an early game that was contested, that was, rife with pickoffs for Melee Creeps. The fact that Kelvin was a real source of stability for them. And so I agree, it's always too early to say after, a sample size of just one game how a player is going to do long term. But Lord NM has been a strong player on other teams too, and I think he's fitting in well in support to Hydra Nation, having very low deaths, being very consistent in that, choosing the right team fights. It's kind of what you need to do on support. I mean, that's kind of the whole game on support is, being at the right fights at the right moment, ensuring that your teammates can rely on you and that they can play with full confidence.
Let me ask you a question, Jake, here, because I find this part really interesting when it comes to these roster shuffles that will happen way down the line. Hydra Nation, do you think they're trying to have Lord and M fully adapt to the way they play, and he needs to play certain heroes that they want him to play? Or do you think Hydra Nation is going to use the hero pool that Lord and M can play? Because I feel like that's an interesting aspect that he brings compared to Quig, where we never saw Quig play last, as far as I can remember.
I think it's always a mix of the two, right? Like, you never want to come in as this one player and then like radically reshape a successful team. Probably not the case for a team as good as Hydra Nation, but at the same time, I think Hydra Nation, they've been so smart with how they utilize their hero pools in the past. I'd expect to see Lord and M for the most part be on your Kelvins, your McGinnises, these like core support role, because that he's kind of like the one who's going to do that for Hydra Nation. But I think if there ever is a look where you want to have maybe play a strat with, like we've seen Hydration on the Viscous before, and Hydra Nation want to go for something a little different, you could bring Lord and M off it. I think that flexibility always just puts a worry in the back of your opponent's head. Like, what if, they bring out something different? Do we have to consider that? And that's just one of the many assets that Hydra Nation have that your opponents are kind of constantly guessing when it comes to what they're going to go for in each game.
And we also saw last week some teams not even running supports, and Lord and M wasn't necessarily a support player for Llama Lords. It was Naked, right? So yeah, exactly. So like, he also gives you that kind of level that the meta does shift away from like having a solid support player, and you want to run 6 people that you don't necessarily need a support for.
I have a hot take for you guys. I have a hot take as you look at the bans here, which is that I think in general the role distributions are like way overrated. I think like this is the very beginning of the game coming out, and so people are talking about like these like different roles, but in the end, like the best players will just have massive hero pools with like 10 plus heroes that they're really good at across different attributes, across different styles of play, different build options. Maybe players will specialize across like a sort of similar group of heroes. But I think as we're already seeing from teams like Hydra Nation, there's just a lot of flexibility in the best players, and this is only the beginning. So I think players like Lord and M who play support but have the aim skill to play carry at the same time, those are the players in my experience that I want on a competitive team.
Yeah, people who are like big Dota watchers will be more familiar with that concept, I think, Jake. Whereas like if you watch traditional MOBAs or like Arena FPS, you know what I'm talking about, you're used to a more rigid structure for team comp. But I don't think we should expect that going forward here with Deadlock, although you will see a lot of the same favorites here picked at number 1 in our draft. Paradox obviously getting picked up with Lash taken off the table by Hydra Nation. They do not want to give that first pick over to Melee Creeps.
That's Shiv, right? Am I crazy?
Shiv, excuse me.
Shiv's been banned out.
But I mean, it's an interesting ban for Hydra Nation to take out Shiv, considering how much they picked it themselves. Maybe they felt Melee Creeps would have taken it on the first ban, or the first pick rather.
Yeah, I think they genuinely think that in NA he is first pick or ban, which is wild considering that the consensus in Europe is so different. Yeah, Holiday really being prioritized here by Hydra Nation.
Yeah, I think Holiday and Paradox are quite similar heroes in terms of what they offer in the pick role.
Each other in a way, yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is like ensuring that you get something when it comes to initiation, catch, that somebody's going to show on a lane, and you can like show up exactly and like engage the team fight.
Yeah.
Although I don't think maybe Rescue Beam is a little wild. I think mostly the Holidays build a lot of like cooldown reduction and just like maximize their ability to catch and cycle with the fast recharge for their jump pad and their barrels. Duration maybe for the lasso.
The duration on, I had a game today where they had improved duration on lasso, and I was bound up, and it was reminding me of my last Saturday night, to be honest. But taking a look, Mirage going to be picked up here for Melee Creeps. I'm surprised to see the Warden pick so early for Hydra Nation, to be honest. I mean, we know Hydration is a really, really good Warden player, but to pick it as like a second pick for your team,
it's a good combo with the Holiday though, right? Natural synergy. You have like a solid Binding Word set up for at least for late game pickoffs. It's like insane if you combo Lasso into Binding Word, you just kill anything pretty much.
And frankly, seeing the police busting early probably also reminds Jason of his last Saturday night. So I can see why he's gravitating towards that here.
Just thinking of nights back in Cologne we used to have, Mitch.
I love the Melee Creeps Wraith response here, though. I think where Warden wants to be all about his mobility and like just running at warp speed, chasing you down. Wraith disarm, silence, and a little bit of stun control mitigates that pretty drastically. And it makes it kind of hard for some of these like Warden-like heroes that want to just WM 1v1 people down, you got to think twice when there's a Wraith on the field, right? You could cut yourself overextended, which is kind of the signature move for Ward.
Paradox and Wraith, right? Both heroes who want to punish that, and often come as a package deal in like dream drafts that a lot of teams want to sort of put together. So it's a very strong core, also rounded out by Mirage. So good start here. Kelvin going to be picked up at 3 again. We saw that he's pretty much the same draft strategy actually from Hydra Nation. The only difference was that they actually opened with Paradox. So this team for the Hydras is looking very, very similar to what we saw in game number 1. They're basically, it's playing out, I think, exactly how they would like to see it. If they don't get Paradox, at least they get Holiday.
That trade-off, man. Like, all right, you can stay on Llama Lords and play a lot of different heroes, or you can join Hydra Nation, win for most of the time, but you have to play Kelvin. What are you going to choose, you know?
I love the early Kelvin prio. I actually feel like this Kelvin ult is a little crazy with the way teams are playing around it now, when they're like using it, securing objectives, or like, you know, just forcing a team fight. Like, you think you're in a 1v1, suddenly Kelvin domes you and you're just a free kill, and not only that, but a full heal reset. Like, there's no other hero in the game besides Kelvin who can literally full heal reset his entire team while they're aggressive on the map. And I feel like that does give you massive tempo in just the very team fights that Hydra Nation was so successful on in breaking melee creeps early game advantage last time, where you start to rotate some of these players in. Kelvin with the ulti is kind of like the king of showing up and turning a fight on its head.
I want to put it in context. Kelvin in Lord and M last game had about 50k healing. That was more than the Grey Talon of Vegas, the highest damage dealer on the side of Hydra Nation. So you are basically, you are healing as much as your biggest damage dealer is dealing. And there are like multiple melee creeps players at like 15 to 20k damage done. So you're canceling out the impact. Multiple heroes with this Kelvin healing. It's not 1-to-1, of course, but just in terms of the numbers.
Skewed though, right? Because of the Geist 1 max with the Mystic Reverb. Like, it's kind of like,
yes,
you do
and laning as well.
With it.
I mean, again, I wouldn't stretch the example too far. It's more of like, you know, in terms of the amount of healing, in terms of the impact, is quite significant. Maybe 30k of that or less is actually relevant in terms of how it skews team fights, but it's still pretty ridiculous.
But a lot of it is efficiency, right? Just keeping your Hydration and Lefa on the map farming, because you're full healing them. They don't need to go back to base. They don't need to buy as many sustain items. They can be greedier. I mean, that's when it comes to like funneling souls, there's few better than Kelvin to do it. I love the Viscous ban this time too. I think Viscous was a bit of a thorn in their side, especially in the ultra early game.
Laning was
laning is monstrous on Viscous, really puts the pressure down. So maybe Hydration can expect to have a little bit of an easier time with that out
as well. He saved a lot of people with this with cubes last game too. Like,
yeah, like the binding word combo. You could totally counter with cubes. You shut that down. Melee creeps though are getting a ton of like just high prio heroes when it comes to like a late game draft. I mean, last game I felt Hydra Nation had a drastically better late game scaling. They could be really patient and slow. Given the draft so far, I think Hydra Nation may need to put the pressure a little bit higher here, because melee creeps are the ones with, for my money, quite a strong late game. I don't think it's like as dominant as it was for Hydra Nation last game, but I think both teams have pretty equivalent scaling so far, and so I don't think it'll be so comfortable for Hydra Nation to just sit back and kind of rely on reaching a scaling point where they know they're stronger. I think it is going to rely on maybe some earlier objective pressure from both teams looking to get that edge.
Do they need another initiating factor here on Hydra Nation? Obviously they got the Holiday Lasso, but outside of that, like obviously Geist Infernus aren't necessarily going to give you
Lash.
that capacity.
Lash could go crazy here.
Yeah, it's obviously a classic Lefa pick. Grey Talon comes in here.
They don't have a Vegas hero. That's true. I mean, Grey Talon did massive damage last game. Like really incredible stuff. And you know, for melee creeps, they've got a lot of pick off. They could get on top of this talent and Punisher, and so this is going to be a real test for Vegas, right? We've seen Calicos in EU just running over the Grey Talon. You know, Wraith could be dashing in. Mirage, I mean, there's a lot of threat on Talon. So if Vegas can play well this game and kind of like dance away from all these aggressors on top of him, he's going to be able to poke these heroes down really well. But he should expect a pretty heavy pressure. A lot of people coming to chase him down in these fights.
Okay. Front line as well, some good chase potential. One thing that I, was maybe overlooked here was the paradox for Hydra Nation. A lot of picks actually originated from the kinetic carbine and just with fast rotates into the lane, which Hydra Nation don't exactly have something on such a low cooldown to sort of set up for these kind of picks. Obviously, Kelvin can slow you up, and we know, of course, Holiday is a bit of an issue. Abrams has never looked better, honestly. I didn't know Abrams was a part owner of the Green Bay Packers. That's crazy.
Oh my god,
you're so mad, dude.
I don't think he's here.
I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see who goes.
I'm here. And I mean, look, when it's accurate, it's accurate. But I don't live in Wisconsin, so I don't even own the Green Bay Packers. I just want to be really clear on that.
Yeah,
so,
he's a Patriots fan,
I
guys.
have to watch the Vikings just completely do terrible things to themselves every season. It's awful.
Oh, that is classic. Where is that from? E-League? Where is that from? Such a good photo for this.
Before I leave with my game analysis here, I just like to. I'm curious to see between Leffa and DMB who goes for the Geist, who goes for the Infernus.
Yeah.
Because I think in this game, I think Infernus might have a little bit more pressure to scale deeper into the late game than last game, where I think he was a little bit more sacrificial. So curious to see if Leffa goes for that, or if they just let DMB run it back after a successful game. Maybe Leffa said, "Hey, that Geist lane looks pretty strong. Let me get a shot at that." I could really see it both ways here.
All right, here it is, folks. Hydra Nation versus Melee Creeps. This one is for all the marbles. A 2-0 for Hydra Nation means they once again have secured King of the Hill status here at our Deadlock Fight Night and will gain themselves another $1,000 thanks to our friends over at Intel. Can Melee Creeps put this to a stop? Will we ever unpause the game? Stick around and find out. We have some ping spikes here in the Hydra Nation side to just iron out. Looks like we're good to go. And yeah, I want to see, who's piling the Infernus, maybe who's on that Geist here for Hydra Nation.
I think it was DMB on the Infernus.
Okay. Seen Leffa on it a while back, but yeah, it's probably expecting him to be in one of those more Lady Geist-esque picks. Here come Melee Creep. So it's going to be Geist versus Mirage in that lane number 4, Jake, and Wraith versus Infernus in lane numero uno.
Yeah, I want to see Leffa's Geist this game. Actually, I'm really curious to see what he can put up with Leffa getting a little bit of farm priority as he consistently does. Expect him to maybe go for a pretty heavy spirit damage build. And this is honestly a pretty nice game for the Soul Siphon, right? You've got heroes like Abrams who don't really disengage and could really get punished by a max Soul Siphon. I feel like this could be a game where Leffa kind of goes for this unkillable Colossus Soul Siphon build. And, it's going to be up to Saya and Lomain to be able to challenge that in the front line.
I love that you brought that up, Jake. The full commit of Abrams, is something to look out for.
Well, they swapped lanes just now. They both, so the Calico and Paradox moved over to lane 3, and the Abrams and McGinnis went over to lane 2. So potential chance to maybe lose out on some souls on that switch, but they didn't like what they were up against with that poke, because McGinnis and Abrams can be very susceptible to that.
So instead, they'll be up against the Kelvin and the Warden setup. So still a lot of poke in terms of like grenades that can be thrown at you. And obviously decent push power in that lane. Good sustain to boot lane number 2. This is lane 3 you're looking at right now. Cool cheese. Over to lane 2, they've already seen that McGinnis wall get thrown up. Hydration, though, wants to scale it. There's a lot of damage going down on Axe, the McGinnis here. And even a flask over the top there to give Lomain a tickle and keep him honest.
This is such a scary lane. The Warden Kelvin just spamming nukes on you 24/7. And for Abrams and McGinnis, these aren't really like the most mobile characters who are going to be able to dodge away from those. They're going to have to just try to sustain through this punishment, but not sure how realistic that is, as Pop already getting bullied enough in this lane to let DMB just batter down the tower this early is kind of a bad sign.
Yeah, Cool Cheese has already had the piece out of lane 3 as well. You can see that pressure really getting built up by Hydra Nation as, yes, I was left to try and helm the ship, so to speak. DMB, here comes the flame dash on in. Back done out, of course, and it just wants to push this wave in under the tower as quickly as possible, get that extra minion damage, little parry action, and then got out of there.
Kind of brave to use your dash to get aggressive. Usually you want to save that to escape, but considering his lane 2 is pushed up, not really a threat of being ganked anytime soon here, as we do see potentially Axe gonna be all alone. You can see Lomain's rotated into lane 1.
Deadass looks like a late 2000s like FPS map maker in lane number 2 with all the walls and the bloody frozen roads going up there. Oh, what a shoulder charge. DMB was not ready for that one. Lomain with the RKO out of absolutely nowhere in particular. Secures that first blood here. DMB falls in lane 1.
Okay, so again, as we talked about before match 1 began, you need to have your solo laners for melee creeps to have a strong start if you want to be able to contest against Hydra Nation. And well, speaking of the man Hydration, able to get the kill onto Axe because Lomain left the lane. They knew they could pressure and they do get the return kill. So really, really smart play for them to get aggressive there.
Okay, lane number 3 again. Flick pops up here on the holiday. We'll take note, of course, of Cool Cheese there, and you get the crack shot trigger at least for the extra damage and decaying slow on that Paradox. Although, hang on, there's a push up here from Saya. Could be dangerous, and it's an overextension. Vegas able to bring them down as Flick gets involved. And Vegas able to walk away here, healthy enough, getting the healing right on them. One gets bought by Flick as well to top themselves back up, and it looks like Hydra Nation do not want to base anytime soon.
Really good job by Flick to get that knock up to just prevent that dive from coming out of Saya. I mean, yeah, you sometimes might be able to beat them on an individual level, but I still think the players in Hydra Nation are probably pound for pound, probably the best individual players in North America. We see a little bit of aggression come out of Lord here. Trying to actually, keep this pressure on. As Jake pointed out before, there's a lot of grenades that can be thrown your way, a lot of chip damage you're going to be taking, and they're having to use that wall defensively just to kind of keep them back. You see the last stands use that hydration, trying to like force a fight, and you can see just melee creeps in this lane too are just on that back foot.
Lasso just came online for Flick, so look to see lane 3 get a little bit messy now as well. Here's a paradoxical swap. This could be dangerous. Left, but doesn't have the soul exchange yet, so they couldn't get themselves out of that situation. And the drift over works out perfectly there. I would be fuming if I was Hydra Nation. Nice little rotate from Cool Cheese over towards lane number 4, helping AVG stay strong in that matchup. Lefa going to be a little bit while longer before they really scale into that late game. Here's a frozen shelter. DMB obviously goes for that concussive combustion. Lord and Emma going to make it tough here for Poshipop to walk away unscathed. Obviously, the Guardian making this a bit more of an interesting exchange, but Low Main is getting his absolute lights punched out. And somehow, I don't know, Poshipop was able to escape back to base on the road.
Yeah, frozen shelter just healed him up, not to mention the grenades. Really good rotate out of Lord and M to make sure to use those abilities wisely and keep DMB alive here, considering you saw Low Main go over towards lane 1. And we're talking, you asked this question before, right? Like, how do we feel about Lord and M so far? Yeah. And I mean, we're seeing like the rotations are pretty spot on. He knows when to use what to keep his teammates alive.
Yeah, I've been liking it so far as well. Okay, DMB, let's respect this a little bit. Obviously, Abram siphoning that health away is just not something you want to stick around for. And behind him, Lord and M is still here. He's opted to stay in this lane, leaving Hydration alone for a while in lane number 2. Looking to amass as much farm as humanly possible.
Like, I don't know. I'm not really feeling too good for Axe here up against, or in that 1v1. Like this, I feel like should be a fight Hydration can win as long as it doesn't get walled off. He forced the wall to be used defensively, then he could potentially go in for the kill.
Yep. And was the Axe pushed up there pretty far, in fairness. Still another 20 seconds away from a paradoxical swap here for Cool Cheese, so no opportunity to really start off a fight. And still, Lord and M is hanging out in that lane number 1, trying to make sure that DMB gets propped up to some degree. Telekinesis about to be back online for Poshipop over there, and Saya drops to Flick. That's in lane number 3. Cool Cheese didn't have the swap quite available. It was a couple of seconds before they would have had that ability ready, and that window goes begging. Saya gets picked off by the Holiday.
Thing is, I don't really hate this like dual lane for DMB, because it's kind of like you keep it so DMB can do well in the lane, keep farmed up, but you also try to deny Poshipop potentially at the same time, and it makes sure it allows DMB to be that kind of objective killing force later on in the game, because he's not being punished too heavily in lane, especially with how much Low Main's been into this first lane.
That kill was lane number 3, by the way. That was just Saya fast traveling back into the lane to get a kill, but it ends up being traded out. Cool Cheese fell there to Vegas. Pretty even, though. These early kills don't amount to too much in terms of souls. Okay, now we're going to have some help here in this lane. Cold front used there, but nobody close enough to Low Main to be effective. And here comes a flame dash. DMB goes in. Oh no. My goodness, that is aggressive. Telekinesis, though, interrupts that ultimate. No stun off the back of that. Frozen Shelter going to be used here by Lord and M. And excuse me, and it might have just saved DMB's life at that. Frost Grenade with the healing. Still tanking that Guardian damage, by the way. And I think Poshipop's in trouble as well. Beautiful little 2-for-none trade, plus a Guardian for Hydra Nation.
That frozen shelter missed, though. That was not the desired result of that one. DB still somehow stays alive from that one, and eventually able to turn that in for some kills. The paradoxical swap comes through. Hydra Nation are looking to end this series quickly. They're looking for objectives here, even though melee creeps are being aggressive here on lane 3. Lord M's going to be rejoining the fight, this time looking for the kill on the Cool Cheese.
Or Guardian.
Another Guardian.
And then the kill. Cool Cheese can't do too much about this now. The grenade gets thrown down. Wall has to come up there. Axe turns up in lane 3 just in time to save that paradox. But Hydra Nation got what they came for. They are 2 Guardians down to melee creeps' 0 right now.
A little bit of a slowdown now after all the action. Lane 1 looks like it's returned to normality here. But with Hydra Nation getting aggressive early on, taking 2 objectives, they already have a 4K soul lead. Now Jake wanted to spot out how things are going to be working on Lefa. He's still looking to be just dead even in this lane, even though we got ganked earlier on. But it looks like the action's going to be breaking out towards lane 2.
Yeah, there's the drift as well in this 3-lane direction. I think some of these items getting picked up here. The melee charge, of course, online for low main. I don't know if I'd like to be there, though, if I'm Abrams right now. Heavy barrage going to be thrown out just for a moment here. Cancelled, though, by axes. Here comes the owl. Oh, buddy. The goon squad descends on low main. And Axe couldn't do too much about it. They were far too low to stand out in the open with, obviously, the movement speed hindrance of that heavy barrage, making them a easy pickup.
So we saw what melee creeps could do in the first game when they kept things equal and even slightly ahead in their favor. But now being down 5k souls almost 10 minutes in, what can they do to reverse how this game's been going? I mean, that's a great little swap and charge in. That's at least one little step you need, as they do pick up just a 3k difference now. But I'm worried. Like, we've seen them play ahead, and now we're seeing them play from behind, and I feel like it's gonna be much tougher to have a chance to beat Hydra Nation if we're playing from behind this early on.
Buffs up now. Maybe a little was lane 3 bridge. There might be a little bit of a skirmish for control of those. Okay, Lefa. Soul Siphon here. AVG not respecting it over much. Obviously able to get some life back via the Fire Scarabs. And Jin's Mark getting a good bit of damage on Lefa after the fact. There is going to be an Abrams here. That was a barrel thrown in by Flick. AVG just going to shrug that off, though, happily enough. As now we have a 2v2 in this lane number 4. Ern also picked up and is heading this way. So we are building up to what is going to be a throwdown for the control of this objective.
My question is, are they actually going to go for the turn-in off of this? Or are they just trying to bait players to allow DMB to push lane 1? We can see low main's going to be there. So do see a kill onto Vegas. So already Hydra Nation going to be down a player, as they do return it back on the Saya. And Poshpop does take down DMB. So I would imagine for your melee creeps, you potentially let this go in. You take a Guardian on lane 1. Try to get some gold across the map here for your whole team. And looks like that's going to be what's going to happen.
There's still some presence here. I don't know if AVG wants to give this one up for free. It does get picked up, though, by Flick. Okay, maybe that's because of the frozen shelter put down there by Lord NM. They're looking healthy enough inside that, but that is the Guardian trade that you alluded to, Jason. Melee creeps get themselves their first Guardian of the game. Hydra Nation have kept themselves off those tier 1 objectives for so long. There might be another one here, though, unless Hydration has something to say about it. Slowing Hex thrown down on top of that alchemical flask to try and ward away the Abrams. At least it keeps them at bay for the time being. Hydra Nation, slim lead. 3k souls here. As again, we'll see this adamant defense of this second Guardian.
I mean, lane 4, even in a 2-on-3, they still managed to pick up a kill. Eventually, Leffa will fall from this, but we see Vegas rotating in to help out. Owl's going to be coming through, looking for a connection on a Cool Cheese, and he's very low on health. Smoke comes through, but it's not going to matter. He's going to fall, and Flick's going to get the kill, and potentially another Guardian here.
I'm telling you, man, like that crack shot, like buff hit really hurts, especially when you have like Mystic Shot active on that. Like the burst from that is considerable. We just saw that health bar disappear with that one shot from the Holiday. Nicely done. Guarding though on this Sapphire side, lane number 1 going to go down, excuse me. Lane number 4 it was. Lord and M though is run into low main. Doesn't fancy it. Decay was thrown though on top of this Abrams to counteract the healing over time. And still, low main still wants to be a part of the action here. Back over towards lane number 2. Might have a rotation here from AVG. Yeah, they're headed over towards that lane 4 just to keep that one going. So, bit of a lull in the action here. 4k soul lead for Hydra Nation. Jake, it took melee creeps a long while to get that first Guardian. They were kept off that by Hydra Nation for ages.
Yeah, this is a game that, you know, Hydra Nation with a more balanced scaling draft for both sides. Hydra Nation have been pushing their advantage, I think, a lot harder. Lord NM going for the healing world record with this build, with an insane level of healing for his allies. And, I mean, he's able to brawl in his own right here, opening up, finding what looks to become a pickoff here for the Holiday.
I mean, got Rescue Beam, you got Restorative Locker, you've got a heck of a lot of those healing utility, of course, and that's not even mentioning the grenade. So, little pick off there on Cool Cheese. And they weren't quite ready for the Arctic Beam, apparently, to root them in place. And still more action. Frozen Shelter thrown down here. This is going to let Flick have a sidebar with Axe, and they were never going to escape that one. So now this surely has to be this Guardian under some serious scrutiny here in lane number 2. I think they're aware, Hydra Nation, that low main is within the vicinity, but not a lot of backup for them. They're stretching melee creeps quite thin here, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 6k difference, and it doesn't look like they're stopping just yet. Barrel's gonna land to get the knock up as well into Cool Cheese, trying to commit for the push, the warp stone as well, and the howl, and Leffa takes him down. That's another kill going the way of Hydra Nation. This lead is continuing to extend here, and the pressure is just not letting up.
And again, it looks like it's been back and forth fighting, and it has, but once again, excuse me, the subtext of all of this is that Hydra Nation have taken all but one of the Guardian. Here's the shoulder charge here, but there's far too much damage on Low Main before he went in. That was essentially his last stand, and he knew it. Speaking of which, here's Hydration, of course, pushing up. Frost Grenade being used on the offense here to try and slow Axe down, if I'm not mistaken. They're trying to hide behind this Guardian. They are in deep trouble. They walk away from it. But of course, with DMB here alongside Hydration with good gun builds, they're going to put a lot of pressure down and have this fourth and final Guardian dead to rights as we move into the next phase of the game. Another 20 odd seconds and buffs are back.
And I would not want to have been Axe there, just seeing 3 people just pushing past the minion wave, looking to dive under the tower.
Okay.
Nice little response though on Apache Pop, gets himself the walker on lane 1, so a little bit of extra income on their side, takes the lead down to 2K now. Obviously a lot more map control with the help of this. Spots out Hydration, trying to set himself up for the buff, and actually fends him off. The movement buff will be picked up by Low Main.
Okay, obviously no flex shot yet because they still don't have enough Guardians to unlock it, despite the walker being taken there by melee creeps. But they do get themselves a decent amount of souls as a result of taking that objective, and they've shrunk that lead for Hydra Nation down to just 1K. Burst Fire being picked up, of course, for the Mirage. His Axe is probably in trouble here. I don't think they're going to... I think DMB's chasing them. It's going to be a tough one. Another Guardian taken down, though. So Hydra Nation are getting baited into chasing their tail a little bit here in the middle part of the map. They need to turn this into some serious objective control, but the lane might be pushed against them. Okay. We're going to have, return to the shadows from Sire. Not really hitting very hard. This is now going to be Ava trying to stay alive. I appreciate this. You wouldn't hit me. I'm a cat. They jump on out, of course. Kinetic Dash will give Sire the ability to mostly try and clear the gap here. Love the tech is to get up through the hatch, of course, and Sire putting on a bit of a masterclass of movement. They have gotten away with murder.
Oh, the owl. Oh, the owl was coming, though. You can see it on the minimap here. It's going to be going over towards the Wraith. And a connect, but obviously not going to go for the kill. And well, Lord and M is going to pick up the urn yet again to look to run it across the map. And I feel like Hydra Nation here could try to force now a team fight or a free turn in as DMB's just trying to escape. Uses the dash to run, creating some distance, but melee creeps. They're putting 3 players here. And they're leaving Apache Pop to split push on to lane 4 to look for another Guardian, potentially another Walker yet again. I don't hate the way melee creeps are using Apache Pop. He's at 18k souls. I mean, he's leading the entire lobby right now.
At some point, they're going to want...
If he keeps losing his fights, then he's going to have to get involved.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, they're going to want to have those souls turned into actual like team fight winning capacity. But so far, so good here for melee creeps. Ready to fight, of course, around the urn. Lasso going to be catching on, of course, here to the Abrams, taking them out of the fight. But still, Hydration and Lord and M are both down. Urn picked up by Cool Cheese, surely to be turned in here. Flick is just trying to delay the inevitable by the looks of things. But Hydra Nation are falling to pieces over here by the urn. Melee creeps are going to get everything they could have asked for and change.
Fantastic play to melee creeps. Can they continue to go from here? DMB, I mean, they're trying to push onto this lane 2. Walker would open up another flex slot as you were making fun of them not having a single one. They potentially could be looking at their second of the game, but instead they're going to be going for mid boss here. And realistically, how can they contest this? Leffa, I mean, it's the ultimate. He can't really go in. He can maybe chip away at damage. Hydration is going to be getting here with last stand, but this is going to be almost impossible for them to steal.
Yeah, no chance. You don't have the concussive combustion either, even though DMB somehow finds himself surrounded by all of them. Hydration able to get Low Main at the very least here. The last stand, of course, for the Warden is scary, but Hydration doesn't have a lot of backup, and Leffa spent that entire fight keeping a respectable distance away from melee creeps. Despite this, though, we're still going to see a fight. Hydra Nation still want to throw down here yet again. AVG, though, proving pretty tough to catch here, excuse me. And Leffa will be caught out trying to dive in. Hydra Nation lose their nerve a little bit. Think they can take a second full team fight, and they lose that one as well.
Gotta get credit to melee creeps here. They were down by 6, 7, 8k. Obviously a lot of that due to objectives, but they were able to bounce back, get a ton of objectives done for themselves. Apache Pop on 20k now, really putting out some serious damage. And the bold move to catch out 5 players of Hydra Nation, turn that into a mid boss. This is perfect. But what can they do off of this? They need to keep this momentum going. They do have the lead, the biggest lead we've seen for them so far in this whole series up against Hydra Nation. And we've seen what they can do in the past, just in our first match versus TF2 Boomers, though obviously a little bit of difference between those 2 teams in skill.
Here we are. Pretty decent lead now. And a good little cash in here from melee creeps. Those key items like Hunter's Aura, of course, for the Calico haven't been picked up. So, Jake, at this point now, Hydra Nation have kind of thrown some good money after bad. This is a little uncharacteristic of them, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, the fight snowballed out of control. I will say, I mean, the poking in on the mid boss, they got like 4 players down to sub 10% HP. So I can't blame them for the attempt, wanted to take some of these rejuves off. Now it's Hydra Nation's turn to play, you know, really defensive into a rejuve. So there's an opportunity to find pickoffs, openings, and that's not what you want for Lefa to be initiated on. See if he can play his way out of this.
All right, Abrams in the center of that fight, just where he wants to be here. Clinching's also getting involved. How do you walk away from this one if you're Lefa? That's the question that was posed. Limping away, probably more accurate. They are going to get out of the fight, but Lord and M had to put their body on the line in order to save the teammate. Return to Shadows here for Sire, gets them out of trouble. Shrugs off their level of scrutiny they were facing, and again, this pressure on the Walker will continue. Melee Creeps here, there's a feeling, Jason, that they would have to mess up pretty bad, I think, from here on out to lose the game. We've seen it happen before. Lefa's found Cool Cheese, and Sire wants to get the heck out of there for the time being. One Walker remains here for Hydra Nation, but they are starting to pick up a couple of kills around it.
Oh, AVG picked up the 1v1 against DNB on lane 4, which allowed them to get another Walker. That's the final Walker of the game, and another flex slot unlocked for Melee Creeps. They're up 20k. Like, yeah, they do lose a couple of players, but honestly, off the back of that mid boss, they got a lot accomplished around the map. They got a lot of extra control out of their way. Getting this urn, yeah, you're just trying to deny it away from Hydra Nation. You know, considering you have 2 players already down, it's just take it back to base. Don't let them turn this in to get a lot of extra souls on their side. And this is fantastic. Like, this is actually such a really amazing turnaround by Melee Creeps and really good decision making with the pushes they've been doing, with pushy pop push on lane 1 Walker, having an AVG separate from the team on lane 4 to push that one, having his team in lane 3 if they wanted to rotate in. Really well done by Melee Creeps.
Generally, anyone's game, you cover the names at the top of your screen and you don't call this game over, that's for sure. But 0 Walkers left for Hydra Nation, which does conversely mean, of course, there's a lot of souls on the battlefield contained within those objectives, but what Hydra Nation would lose potentially to try and take those, that might not be an exchange that they're looking to make. Titanic Magazine here picked up for Poshy Pop. They have been pushing very well over the course of this game, now getting up to 27k souls, and that's not ideal. Therefore gets picked up there. Hydra Nation weren't even really grouped up for a fight. DMB really just looking in from the outside. Now knows they have to get involved in this engagement. Here they go, looking for a flame dash on in. Concussive combustion not available to them now. It's hydration going down. AVG the only casualty thus far on Melee Creeps, and it looks like they're taking fights on the right tempo here, keeping Hydra Nation under their thumb.
I think the worst part for them after getting these 3 kills, it's like, what objectives do we have to take? There's none left outside of their base. The urn, they didn't have it in hand. I think they dropped it and it just got away from them. They could have turned it in after getting those 3 kills. So they're not really able to grow the lead too much other than the 3 limbs they got in that last fight. Though Cool Cheese might be getting caught out here in lane 3, but the backup's going to be there. And this actually might be an overextension out of Hydra Nation. A great charge comes through as well, chiming in perfectly with Cool Cheese's paradoxical swap. And another kill goes their way, and this should be the urn.
Melee Creeps really have that particular combo on lock. I don't know what Flick's intending to do here, as they can really only peer over the top of the buildings at Melee Creeps as they begin to shift into another gear in terms of their domination of the cursed apple. There are no walkers left, I repeat. Just these base objectives now to work on. By any word here on Poshy Pop, and he respects it. He backs right on up here outside of that area, but DMB has fallen. Sire has opened up these fights pretty consistently, and Hydration does not have the durability to deal with this onslaught. Frozen Shelter is purely going to be a stay of execution for Lord and M. They'll back away, but Sire will not be denied. In they dive. Flick ceases to exist, and the Shrines will follow suit.
Mid-boss should be spawning, yeah, 1:30. Like, this is the perfect position to be in. You have the Shrines down. You have the Patient transformed. Another flex that unlocked for your team. And this lead is just continuing to grow. Some great catches coming through. And also the great backup. Like, we saw the Binding Word come in onto Poshy Pop, and Lomain was there instantly to hit the charge on Hydration to back him up here. They're really working well together as a team, looking completely different than the later stage of the game in match 1. With mid-boss come up in a minute time, it's like, you can kind of force a fight there. Like, that's going to be the next point of contention, 100%. They're going to look to bait in Hydra Nation here for a fight.
How over is this game, Jake? Scale of 1 to 10.
I think Melee Creeps definitely have a good odds here. However, it's going to come down to this next mid-boss. I think if they can secure the mid-boss without much of a loss in terms of players, they're in a great spot. But really, these pickoffs from the Paradox Abrams have been a huge problem. They're looking to start more right here, going in on Vegas, who once again has been targeted and punished. This great talent just lacking the survivability. Maybe the game's done. I don't think they're going to mid, boss.
No, I think they're just going to push into the base stake. I think you're exactly right. Once again, it's just too easy to put together like the swap charge combo or find a catch out on that Grey Talon. So, folks, into the pit we go in a moment once the Frozen Shelter has expired. This time the charge doesn't quite connect, but Sire is still there getting rid of DMB. And Melee Creeps have decided after a tough first game that they will not bow down. They're not going to make it easy for Hydra Nation, folks, as they're going to take us to a third and final map in our money match. That's right, Melee Creeps give as good as they get to even up the series.
Really well done, man. I like there was nothing crazy done necessarily individually. There was no like niche pick that allowed them to pull off this comeback like that as well. It was just some good solid play, some good solid teamwork, and also calling coming in through the team. The split pushes they were doing were fantastic. It pulled Hydra Nation away. Obviously, the bounce back of being down was about 7,000 souls to be able to group up, get those Guardians, realize that if we don't do something now, we don't take that lead back a little bit, they could potentially snowball this game. So just, well done. Well done.
Yep. I mean, Jake, let's bring you in. It seems like the precursor to this game getting out of the hand for Hydra Nation. We were actually watching Pop, who pushed down a Guardian and a Walker in quick succession. And Melee Creeps were not forced to give anything up for that. They were able to tie up Hydra Nation across the map, and that was the beginning of the snowball.
Yeah, I think there's this huge team fight that starts with Cool Cheese finding a swap onto Hydration, who's instantly charge comboed by Abrams. And then after losing Hydration, you know, Hydration, they're in the lead. They're trying to like force the fight anyway with some key skills down, but they end up getting crushed and lose, I think, 5 players in that fight, losing mid boss. And once Melee Creeps had that firm advantage, that firm control of the game, they just kept pushing and repeating on that tempo. So many times we saw the swap charge with Abrams and Paradox comboing together, and that's like almost a guaranteed kill on anybody. I think Lefa survived it one time with probably the tankiest hero on the map, but just this is a really deadly combo. If the execution is on point, it's a lot of control. It's an insane amount of damage with Abrams controlling you like inside of the Paradox, Outfire, and the Pulse Grenade. So really, Cool Cheese and Abrams, I think, being the key elements for the comeback. And as you guys mentioned, I think Pashi Pop on the Wraith and then the Mirage as well, being able to play the map and keep those lanes pressured. It's a masterclass in coming back, right, with this incredible pickoff combo the two of them were able to bring.
Some moments here, of course. It's just, you know, at the point where Hydra Nation were looking pretty good, but you see now we jump forward like, you know, 5 minutes or so, and this is basically the end of the game. Not one Walker goes down. In fact, most of them almost at full health. As much as we like to talk up Hydra Nation's macro, they really couldn't get it going this game because Melee Creeps were anticipating them, Jason, pretty well. And again, setting up these pretty consistent picks. Remember, they picked Paradox first. They absolutely wanted that pick potential. We talked about how, like, you know, Holiday is quite similar in some ways, but I don't know. I don't know if you can really beat the consistency of that paradoxical swap through Time Wall into Shoulder Charge. It seems like, you know, we question Hydra Nation's ability to actually start fights in a favorable manner. They only really had the Holiday for hard engage, and I do feel like, looking back, it kind of hurt them.
Yeah, there's not many things better than Paradoxical Swap, and I would imagine Cool Cheese has to have, the highest assists in the game at 13 because he was opening up those fights left and right. But the dangerous thing now, looking ahead to match 3, though, is that Hydra Nation will have the choice of first pick if they want it, which means if you're Melee Creeps, you probably have to ban Paradox most likely to prevent them from having it because Flick is just as good, if not better. Or, I mean, well, we've seen a Hydra Nation. Yeah, exactly. Or Shiv, sorry.
I mean, there's a lot of those like tier 1 picks, right? There's still Vindicta, there's Paradox, there's Shiv. I don't think it's necessarily super straightforward whether first or second pick is better with there being quite a few really strong heroes. One thing I think could have been different this game is maybe if there was a Yamato online for Hydra Nation rather, and then, you know, something that can deal with this incredible initiation. But there was really nobody who could tolerate tanking the swap, tanking the pin from Abrams. No one could survive it. Maybe some E-shifts could have come online a little bit sooner, but the execution was just really clean from low main, always at the perfect spot, not giving any frames for you to get out before the charge connects on the swap target. And with execution like that, it's a pretty scary prospect for anybody on Hydra Nation to be out on the map.
So there you have it, folks. Once again, here in Deadlock Fight Night, NA number 12, presented by Intel, we are going to a decider map in our money match. Once again, Hydra Nation forced to pull out all the stops to defend their spot at the King of the Hill. Will they maintain their throne, or will they be toppled for real this time? There's only one way to find out, of course, folks. It's to stick around and join us for Out of Sight Map. We'll see you soon. All right, squad. Saddle the heck up. It all comes down to this. One more map to decide our King of the Hill in week 12 of our Deadlock Fight Night for NA, presented by Intel. I'm Mitch, joined by Jake and Jason Kaplan. Guys, we have seen Melee Creeps break back into the game in a really strong second match. One that honestly kind of billowed out of control by about the 22-minute mark. Jake, Melee Creeps demonstrated a great transition out of that lane phase. And honestly, they didn't make any mistakes. They kept the lead. They didn't let off the gas at all, and they closed out the game.
Yeah, it was fantastic use of the Paradox Abrams combo. I feel like one of those two is not going to be allowed by Hydra Nation, because so many players were picked off from that. Like, you know, just the swap would bring people out of position, could maybe set up for the start of a good team fight. But with the Abrams coming over the top, it was just like guaranteed kills, opening the fight right off the bat over and over and over again. I think that Abrams last pick really came in clutch for Melee Creeps, gave them the road to make a comeback. But you have that combo, there's always the threat to get a pick off and turn things around. And there wasn't really like the hard save that Hydra Nation needed to get them out of that.
I think some credit also should be going up to Poshy Pop on the Wraith. Like, we're talking about like, I think we were talking this during the break, right? Like the quality of heroes each team got. We feel like Melee Creeps definitely got the better end of that one. Like the fact that you get Wraith picked up with Paradox is already kind of insane. But Poshy Pop, I mean, the fact that he was able to split push confidently, he was able to push back Hydration a couple times in lane 1. Like, he really had a lot of control, and I feel like that's something they didn't really have in the first match. I mean, yeah, you had maybe like a Geist, but it's not really going to be as scary as like a Wraith who's fed and who has the most souls in the game.
And we were talking about just how strong Hydra Nation were looking. They had that lane 2 with like they had the Kelvin, they had the Warden as well, but they ended up rotating the Kelvin out of lane 2 to help, I think it was DMB in the solo lane, right? I think they realized that they weren't going to get their Infernus online properly if they didn't put the Kelvin over there for a long period of time. And I think all of a sudden it gave them much less ability to intervene on like the right side of the map, because they had like, you know, 2 players in lane number 1. So they really struggled to like respond quickly, you know, and rotate across, you know, outside of using the teleporter, which was not really an option because a lot of action went down in lane 3. So, you know, we'll circle back, I think, at the end of this game to the more macro-based discussion about how this one goes. But we have the Shiv banned out straight away. Hydra Nation, with their first pick, Melee Creeps had to ban Paradox here, right?
Yeah, but there's also Vindicta that I think has been banned out all series long, and I think is still super high prio. I think there's an argument for leaving both in the pool and then getting whatever, like give up Paradox or Vindicta and get the other one. The danger if you ban either of those is Hydra Nation could just respond by getting the other. So maybe you ban something else, like sort of a third party, something that you don't want to deal with in this game.
I am very interested in this ban. This ban is pretty pivotal. It is a Paradox ban. So Melee Creeps give up the Vindicta here potentially for Vegas or something similar. But yeah, no of those swapperoonies allowed. Melee Creeps don't want that done back to them, not by a team like Hydra Nation. So Jason, what are your thoughts on what our first pick should be? Is Vindicta that highly prized to take at this point in the draft?
I would be surprised. I think it's safe to call like Vegas like a Vindicta specialist. Like he's kind of a fire specialist with like Vindicta and with Great Talon. And we've already saw in the first game like how much damage he was putting out on Great Talon. Whether or not they go for it, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, considering it's just consistently banned in every game in NA.
Today isn't the day for mercy.
Yeah,
there it is.
The bin
every
comes
game
out.
in NA? You mean today? Yeah. Pick ban 59% of the time, and that's obviously across all of DFN. So we've seen different metas. She's 9-3 so far in played games. That is pretty cracked win rate. My God.
I mean, the hero just has so much flexibility, right? It's got like area denial on the ground if you build like the Alk Fire, and you know, you're staking people into it. It's got the snowballing from the soul lead, and then it's probably the most efficient shield builder in the game. You know, you just build like the Divine Barrier, Combat Barrier, Enchanter's Barrier, and you're just pumping all forms of damage, keeping your shields on all the time. Yes, you can get on top of Vindicta and punish her and kill her, and that's kind of her weakness. But at this level of play where the teams are really just like fortifying those positions, it's not easy to do.
Okay, so the Mirage is picked up here. I thought that maybe there might be like an early look at Wraith here as well for Melee Creeps. They might want to give that up. That's been pretty instrumental for them so far, Jason, this series.
It's definitely one of DMB's most played heroes for sure, and one of like the heroes he's most comfortable on when it comes to split pushing. I am wondering if we do see a Bebop at some point come out of melee creeps, because it's definitely has some potential, and we know somewhat similar to Paradox, it can create some big openings for your team with the hook off cooldown consistently. The Mirage though, it's actually I think the most pick banned hero in NA if I'm not mistaken at 100%. Actually, I know Viscus is at 100%. I think Mirage is like 99 or something ridiculous. So not too surprised to see it. And the way AVG played it, if he's going to be playing it, was pretty damn decent last game. Did a lot of damage, had a lot of split push potential, and applied a lot of pressure.
I'd like the Wraith here as like a threat that can lock down Vindicta and potentially catch her. And just with how strong the hero is with the macro play, and then late game team fight potential. I think these are great, two high quality openers. Although this time I feel Hydra Nation is matching that quality, right, with the Vindicta. I'm curious to see if they go for the holiday again here. I feel like that could, since Paradox is out, right, like getting this initiator catch potential could be valued a little bit more highly with it kind of running low in terms of what's available left in the pool.
We were seeing Warden, I think, picked it second. Quite often for
I don't think they're
Nation.
picking Warden that high. Maybe they pick it, but I don't think if it goes this early in the draft, I think that's kind of a mistake. I think that they have Vindicta already. That there's more important holes to fill in the draft
on the table, but we've seen Yamato sometimes left pretty late in the draft at times. It is a holiday, so they do have that quasi sort of initiation potential. Her stats in NA though have not been spectacular. Only 2 wins, 7 losses.
Because you get her because you don't get Paradox, and Paradox is better. But without Paradox, I do think
Walmart Paradox vibes.
Yeah, is legitimately strong, and also has a great combo with Vindicta, right? Like you're either Vindicta sets up for a stake for you, and then you combo that. It's like a beautiful combo for stake, right? You jump in with your jump pad, barrel people, stun them to death in that. Vindicta control is like nasty setup. Or vice versa. You could start with the holiday and then Vindicta follows up. Either way, I think this is just a really beautiful opening 2 combo. And they get the Yamato so securing. I mean, this was kind of their problem late game, right? Is like Leffa is so farmed, he gets so much souls, and then on the Geist, he was able to get initiated on. And I mean, it does take like every skill to bring him down, but they get it done in the end. And Yamato's that hero where every skill just is maybe not enough.
Yes.
Shadow transformation online.
It does mean also that like Geist might be open here for melee creeps. They took the Geist obviously in that game 1, and we actually saw like decent bullying of Leffa in lane by the Geist until that wasn't really a possibility. So that's obviously open here. Melee creeps might circle back to their second solo laner here and try and secure a solid core, and Warden will join their front line this time. Hydra Nation allowed that one through. Jason,
I was wondering if melee creeps might try to go Kelvin. Because we've seen Hydra Nation secured every single time, is actually a very high priority pick for them, and also can do fairly well against Yamato because you just kind of lock her in, you wait out the shadow transformation while you're healing up your team, and then you can kind of kill her, you can sustain your team. Also, it's just a good chase potential, but I don't know, for some reason I'm still leaning towards potentially a Bebop. When it comes to bans though, I'm not necessarily sure what they're going to go for, so they're actually going to ban away the Kelvin instead. And as you said, Visc is probably going to be banned out of Hydra Nation.
Yeah. I mean, Hydra Nation aren't probably targeting it as hard because, Vegas, obviously we've seen go over to the Viscus if needed, but doesn't, they obviously don't need a hero for them.
It's not the best Viscus game though for melee creeps with both Vindicta and Yamato. I mean, you're not going to be able to roll on Vindicta like almost ever with her being in the sky.
What about vice versa? How does he?
I think it's quite good. Yeah, it's quite good against melee creeps. If anything, maybe melee creeps pick it just as like a way to deny it. Is like one thought. You just like, it's not the end of the world to be on Viscus. There's gonna be somebody you can damage, but I agree. I think it's much scarier against melee creeps than for them. Maybe they're just forced to take it as the only way to block it out here.
Okay, so we're still looking at a potentially a solo laner. Obviously, a support here as well might need to be looked at by melee creeps. Could have Wraith Mirage take the solo lanes. You could already have that locked down.
I got your back.
Mo and Krill makes
another block pick. I mean, you just don't want to let Vindicta get this combo right there. I think they're really scared of that, maybe even more so than the Viscus. But I think Viscus is an insanely good pick right now for Hydra Nation. You got the save for the Mo and Krill combo, save for Binding Word, and I mean all these heroes like kind of don't love getting their stun target saved by Cube. And then the Roll looks amazing this game. You got stun for combo, just amazing disruption for these frontliners who want to be, chasing people down and brawling them. And then space creation for Yamato and Vindicta, who can absolutely follow up. They go with a Calico as a higher power. I wonder over Viscous.
She survived so deep into the pick ban, in fairness. We were also questioning whether Hydra Nation might actually ban it with their first option. She's caused a lot of problems, I think, for Hydra Nation. But if you were to round this out with a Viscous, Calico Viscous here, you're cooking with gas. You've got really annoying lanes as well. You do need to think about probably a support here and maybe some form of sustain, but with Kelvin out of the picture, obviously, like you can always go in the Ivy direction, I suppose. Yeah, buddy, this is a cool comp, man.
This is a really good draft. I already like so much more for Hydra Nation than last game. And I feel Melee Creeps has been put in an odd spot. I feel they took the Warden as maybe a denial. I'm not convinced that Hydra Nation even wanted it very badly. They took the Mo and Krill. Certainly is a blocking pick here. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but it could be sometimes annoying for Yamato, but it opens you up to this Viscous counter where Viscous, for me, this is like a dream Viscous game. Like everybody is rollable. Nobody has like a crazy mobility that like flight really that's going to get them away from your ball. You have great saves for all the single target catch that Melee Creeps brings. This is super scary. Like even Yamato, right? Like in theory, you can combo the Yamato and punish her and kill her before she ults. Now with Viscous on the field, right? Now you have to combo the Viscous. Meanwhile, Vindicta there's no answer for Vindicta here for Melee Creeps. I don't know how they're going to catch this Vindicta. I mean, Beginnis is like, it doesn't really do anything to Vindicta, right? Like realistically, you're going to be flying over the wall. You're going to be outranging this hero. Bebop is the answer. Yeah. This is like hypothetically, just hook the Vindicta every fight. It's great, guys. Don't worry. I'll get it. Which is a lot of pressure. Maybe you get those knockdowns on Bebop. Maybe it's more real. But I'm worried because this also Bebop I don't think is great as a matchup into Viscous, who hasn't. This is like the best Viscous game I've ever seen. Every single person you can save and Roll kind of dominates like this the channel of the Bebop ultimate. Easy stun for Visc.
I mean, to be fair, right? There's only so many people you can. Oh, okay. Now I'm convinced.
Wow, that's a sick Dynamo pick too. I actually like this. It's sick again. Like think about this. You're going for these initiations with Bebop hooking people, Wraith catching people, but there's no long range damage. I mean, like Mirage sort of can be built long range damage. Maybe in theory Bebop could build like the ult build, but I don't really think there's a lot of close range brawling that's going to happen in this game. And with Viscous able to start the fight off, rolling in, and you're trying to get on top of a Yamato, this is going to be so hard to navigate a Dynamo in these fights. It's going to be so hard to not ever group up in the draft that Melee Creeps have brought.
Did we get the Jason? Are we going to get the spam knockup build? The what was it called?
I've been playing it in my games.
Yeah, what was it called?
I don't know if we need to say it, right?
Okay.
just a knockout build.
Just a knockout build. Yeah.
It's super fun. It is super fun to do, and I know a lot of people in chat are gonna be very happy when they see this that have Dynamo picked up. I think Drake obviously brings up a lot of great points. And the disruption that he's going to apply as well is going to be so fresh to deal with. It's just so much safety on Hydra Nation's side. Like, especially if you go Refresher with Warpstone, like you have the Viscous save. Calico can get out relatively easy with the ultimate and then turn into Cat. Yamato can Shadow Transformate. Is that even a word? This is looking like pretty good for Hydra Nation. I'd say they definitely won the battle when it came to drafts.
Is this a hydration Viscous? What do you guys think?
It could be.
He's played Dynamo, but he has to be playing Viscous.
He's also played Lord as well.
Oh, so he's going to be on the Dynamo.
Interesting.
Oh, okay.
We've seen this before out of him, though.
All right, I'm here for this. Okay, folks, the stage is set here in our final game of our best of 3 with $1,000 on the line, thanks to our friends over at Intel. And we've got a very muy caliente composition on both sides here. We have the Dynamo, we have the Bebop in the game. We're ready to throw down. We're excited about Hydra Nation's comp here. The solo lanes, of course, Calico versus Wraith on that lane number 1. Lane 4 will be Yamato versus the Mirage, a pretty classic lane assignment. Plenty of obviously sustain here through the rejuvenating Aurora for Hydra Nation's lane 2 combination. And obviously we know that Flick, when he has an opportunity to start rotating, that lasso is going to be lasso. I have a problem with saying that word.
Yeah, I don't know. You say lasso all the time, and I feel like it's just because you're Australian.
No,
so I don't just try to correct you.
I think Australians say lasso as well. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know why I have that issue, but
well, one thing I do want to say with the Bebop though is like one hook can change the game. Like you could be behind and one hook can completely win you a game. It can lose you a game. But also thinking back to how Hoot played earlier on with Maidong up against Aegis Aurora, he was very active early on. I believe he went the gun bebop build. He was ganking lanes quite consistently, and he actually created like really good opportunities for Maidong to win the game. Obviously they didn't in the end, but I don't want to count them out just because bebop can be game changing, especially if you get into these stalemates where you're like 35, 40 minutes in, if they get there.
Yes. I've seen like Vale Walker bebop even just to try and tip the scales and find a pick. I like the little rotate over here, but yeah, DMB ain't having none of that. Is bebop still, obviously after the nerfs, is he still as much of a menace in lane? At some point, people are having to take like reactive barrier to try and deal with getting hooked in.
I just feel like at this kind of level, it's not as easy to hit these hooks. It has to come as more as a surprise, right? When you're ganking to hit the hooks more so than just pulling them in lane. I don't think you necessarily have to build anything like specific against them because most of them don't build for bomb damage anyways now. They're building for more gun damage to have a little bit more sustaining damage later on. Obviously, there's no travel time for his beam on top of that, so you can do a lot of damage. It's just that his knockup was nerfed a little bit, so you're not in the air as long when you get knocked out, meaning it's not as easy for bebop to hit you the full time.
There was, amidst this action here in lane 3, almost like a full fight in lane 2, in which Saya almost got picked off here. So already a lot of pressure happening there. In we go. Tornado there, catching on to Leffa. Definitely behind in this fight. AVG looking large and in charge, trying to close this gap. Okay, cheeky little melee attempt there. Leffa's trying to get out. The parry is seen through, and AVG point blank executes Leffa. And that is going to be first blood here for Melee Creeps.
I'm pretty sure that melee went through the wall, or at least it looked like it from our side. I didn't know that was a thing. Okay. He didn't have Jin marked, so like he kind of had to commit for some extra damage there to finish him off. And yeah, you're seeing the hooks come through. He didn't actually even take his bomb until just recently. He leveled up his 1 and 3 like pretty much right away. But the Dynamo, I think like Hydration, we've seen him play it. They won the game, obviously. I don't know. It's not necessarily a hero you want to just be off solo farming with like it typically would do.
Yeah, and of course we have the Dynamo in lane there with the Holiday. It was Pico there earlier. Vegas was able to find elimination. They don't quite have that assassination online, but they will be the first person on the battlefield to get that. Oh, what a parry! Wait a minute. AVG! Power Slash would get them done. He tried to get out of there with the TARDIS, but he wasn't having none of it. Leffa, nicely done. Trades back and finds a crucial kill in this lane. Hydration also dealing with low main here. So again, that Warden at bebop lane for Melee Creeps, Jake, has been struggling.
I think that restorative shot, sorry to jump in, just saved Leffa's life there in that fight against AVG.
Yeah, it's all about the tiny little margins there on the side lanes fight. And I agree. I mean, I don't think Dynamo is here to win the lane. I don't think that's the reason for him. The lane I'm worried about, though, is this Viscous and Vindicta. I think this is a monstrously powerful lane in the early game. You know, you have the Viscous knocking people into the open, Vindicta following it up. She's already got ult online, could look to roam here and get active, as I think she would love to start securing some of these finished snipe kills.
Oh, Hyper Beam helps secure that pick off on DMB. Poshypop going deep for it here. Getting a little dicey. Poshypop very low, but still wants to stick around, but coming off the fast respawn. I think Hydra Nation are going to try and keep fighting for this. And yeah, Flick gets rid of low main. DMB would have loved to have gotten their hands dirty here. But that's the trade as it stands. Poshypop getting picked off as well. So good result there for Hydra Nation, trading up on +1 on aggregate, excuse me, in that exchange. And again, obviously the game, Jason, gets a little bit more hectic now. These ultimates are online at 3k soul. Yeah. We are getting close now to, of course, our first spawn up of buffs.
And I'm looking at Cool Cheese. Like he was instrumental in their victory in match 2 with his paradoxical swaps. I want to see if he can do anything similar with Mo and Krill, or if he's even going to be left allowed to get out of lane, as we do see Axe already go down. He's pretty much just left his own devices to defend up against this. He's got to have impact early on, I feel like, on the Mo and Krill, or it's not going to have impact ever with what we see now the other side with the Viscous, who can save them, with the Dynamos we mentioned before. Obviously, lane 4 would be an ideal place to go to, but they have to be able to shove the lane out to do that, and then he has to have that mobility to get away, or at least to get into that lane to make it happen.
It's just so annoying having to deal with this Viscous in lane. The pressure is constant, although here's that rotation you mentioned. So AVG's pushed up here. And you can see from the other side, Cool Cheese is coming in. Combo is available. Shadow transformation not online here for Leffa. And here's the catch under the Guardian. It is as easy as that, folks. Jump on in, hit the combo. Bob's your uncle. Leffa headed straight back to Lumbridge. But here comes a Google. Cool Cheese gets caught up now. Lord wants to fight for this, but the parry is beautiful from Cool Cheese. And there is the tornado. It's going to have to be a self-cube. This is pretty scary stuff here. Lord and M desperately trying to get away, late to the party and overcommitted, but Leffa is back, just coming back off respawn here. Shadow transformation now at the ready, but I don't know if they'll get the fight they're looking for, as Cool Cheese just casually heads back to his lane.
That restorative locket, man, just gave him a burst of healing in that 1v1. He gets hooked in and a great wall comes through. You can smell that assassination, or at least I could because I got a big nose, coming through. And a great little block off here out of Axe to keep him alive, and again, deny some souls over towards the counterpart on the other team. But yeah, that's what I was looking for out of Cool Cheese. You had a window to play with. Leffa had no shadow transformation because he used it just before when he killed off AVG. And he's still able to push up in towards this this Guardian here for some early damage. And I just gotta wait. That cooldown's gonna be off yet again. And we could see Cool Cheese go for a gank somewhere else.
Yep, he's gonna try and get as busy as possible here. You can just see a good amount of damage on melee creeps' lane 1 Guardian. Hydra Nation have actually kept the holiday over towards that lane, and they're continuing to pressure it. It's actually going to get a bit hectic because Low Man is descending on that very lane as well. Good pressure on this Guardian as well, but here's that lane 1 situation I was talking about. Guardian ends up getting pushed down as Flick rotates into assist. And of course, the Calico is there. There might still be a fight, but it will require a hook to be hit by Low Man, and you can see them right at the top of your screen, and we're just on top of the building. They don't connect on anything, but here we go. I see Dynamo getting left upon there in lane 2, but there's a rotation back there by Flick. Lomain caught out. The bounce there off the pad with the extra damage. Hook catches in on towards Flick, but Lomain was well and truly lost at sea with Calico and Holiday bearing down upon them. It's an easy pickup on the Bebop.
So we got our first objective being taken over in lane 1. We got a 3-man group up in lane 2, maybe looking to push in up to Saya. And Leffa just doing Leffa things, man. He's just so aggressive in lane 4. As you heard Jake say before, probably one of the most individually skilled players in NA. If not guaranteed to be. I don't think I've ever heard a bad thing said about him. It's always praises from everyone when it comes to it.
Yeah.
As you see, Cool Cheese kind of getting caught off here a little bit.
There's just this 3k lead here. Pretty slim. Once that first Guardian got pushed down, and then Hydra Nation turned that into an important elimination as well. Although the pressure is coming back from melee creeps in that lane 4, which is what's drawing Lord and M over right now. No Goo Ball available. Of course, there's plenty to work with. Okay, combo instantly. They just turn on the Viscous, but the damage isn't there. I don't think melee creeps were in agreement in terms of who to go for. AVG wasn't able to put that free damage down. Lord and M, they're going to cube up here. They did take a bit of poke, but they bail Leffa out of what would have been a compromising situation. Now we're going to pop our healing rights, get top back up, and AVG still wants to fight. Okay, Crimson Slash comes in. Telekinesis, though, they're not expecting. Poshy Pop to turn up, apparently. Power Slash, good damage on the rate, though. Shadow Form now will be used simply for Leffa to stand his ground. There's going to have to be further rotations, I think, over towards that lane number 4. I say that as Poshy Pop actually pulls out of there, so we'll see. Fighting Word, though, catches Flick, even though Lowman got picked off. I like the Quantum Entanglement used, as well as the knock-up into the Singularity. Hydra Nation wanted to stick around and fight that, and Hydration will come up with a kill credit on the Warden.
That was a huge heads-up play there. He pops a Singularity to stop the last stand from being used to potentially kill off Flick. Like, that was fantastic. Flicked into a single, I think, point of damage to him, and Hydration was still able to take him down. They're starting to run away at this game. 8k souls in the lead. Looking to start pushing down more and more. These objectives is looking for their first flex slot, as we do see the Traveler use out of AVG to get back into lane 4. And Cool Cheese, he's just trying to close the gap. He does have ultimate coming online in just a second. There it is. But will they be able to lock him down? And Leffa is safely able to get under the Guardian in time.
Good tornado.
Is anyone going to help him out? Cool Cheese, are you
Leffa getting topped up. I think they actually had their own healing right here. Decent parry. Leffa low, though. Oh, my goodness. That is dirty. Vegas from the top rope with the assassination claims AVG, or at least the kill. Comes in with that important damage. And melee creeps are getting close. They're doing the right things, Jake. It feels like they're good at putting good pressure down on Leffa, but that Vindicta now is starting to get active across these rotations.
Yeah, Vegas is, I think, the big threat this game, where Hydration is playing probably a little bit more of a team-oriented game, as is natural on the Dynamo. It's going to be this Vindicta that's going to become a huge problem. And Lowmain, I mean, he just hasn't found some of these big openings in the early game that you're hoping for as a Bebop. Not that it's easy to find them against a team like Hydra Nation. We'll see if he can change that soon, especially as Vegas gets online, get some of these barriers up, get some of his key items. I'm curious to see if he's going for an early Alkfire on this Vindicta, because there's going to be a point where, like, man, in the Dynamo ulti, everything is going to melt.
Oh, that's right. And of course, like, yeah, just the impact of Alkfire in terms of how it affects weapon damage as well. It's just unreal to have that drop down in a fight, and you can sit from above and just preside over it. You see the items coming in now. Bullet latches, of course, for push pop. All those tier 2s being picked up. The stake comes in. Cool Cheese is tethered. Has to burrow away for some of this damage right now. Hydra Nation have a thrust at it, but aren't quite able to catch anybody here on melee creeps. Finding word more of a deterrent there. It's going to be cubed, well, in theory, cubed out of. As Lord and M will back it up himself.
You know, as you mentioned, the impact from low main early on, you have to give also credit to Hydration and Co in lane, as they were able to spot him leaving quite consistently. And then you had the safetiness as well to just kind of run away on the Calico by DMB to make sure he doesn't get ganked and let a snowball happen. Cool Cheese, it's going to be gripped away. We'll be into safety here out of low main. Oh, nope, Tether.
Never mind.
It might come in a second.
Cool Cheese able to spin on out of that one. Jesus, what is that? What is the lens flare?
I think that's the light off your ring light bouncing off your forehead into his eyes.
Bro, it's in-game, dog. It's in-game, bro. I have the part of my forehead for that reason. No. I've got the content creator set up. You never just have a ring light, bro. You got to mix it up. I'll fill you in later. Don't worry about it. It's been a while. You've been managing talent instead of being one, bro. I got to fill you in on the developments in that industry lately. Return to shadows here for DMB as they want to try and opt out of that fight, or at least have a moment, you know, just to preside and see what's happening in the situation. I think they realize, yeah, we're not taking that fight. We'll back away. You've got to be happy to have drawn 2 people over, because that was their soul earned getting returned.
13k. How is Hydration still leading his team in souls? And he's playing Dynamo.
Bro. Oh, what is with these knockups? This is so wrong, man. Bro. I'm getting knocked up a lot.
Now you know why it's called the name that we're not saying on there. I mean, rapid recharge plus that, it's crazy. Just the amount of control you have, the amount of damage he can do.
It's literally Holiday before nerf, bro.
Yeah.
Not literally, but pretty close. Just constant knockups. Okay, well, it's going to be a while before they're all available.
Like Echo Shard for some reason too. If you really want to go that route, then you just like knock up Echo Shard, knock up.
Bro, the rapid recharge is okay. All right, so Toxic Bullets there. Getting picked up by AVG. It's going to be an important item. Here's that Alkfire. So not as early as Jake wondered. Well, I mean, 14 minutes into the game, so relatively far. But Vegas has now picked that item up. So great push power. You know, I think it goes under the radar. We often see multiple Alkfire carriers on a certain team, because it causes enemies rather to take extra weapon damage from your team, including yourself, and you're playing Invicta. It's very good for you. It also anybody that is trying to get gun damage done. Okay, this is about to get a little bit dicey. AVG here tries to throw out the fire scarabs, but there is way too much pressure here for Hydra Nation. They probably have enough of a lead here to start to put the thumb screws on them. Here's the goo ball. Heavy barrage being used there by Axe, but there isn't really a great vantage to make use of that. They back away from the bridge. Leffa did fall though. That makes it a 1-for-1 trade. But you'll notice here that Hydra Nation still have that one Guardian standing. Attention is about to shift though in the direction of the buffs first, and then to the walkers. DMB gets that first one, as I mentioned it, and Hydration, realizes they're a bit out of position.
Yeah, they were down a man in that fight initially, but Leffa was able to get the kill onto AVG, then gets a little bit too aggressive and caught out because they had 2 players pushing on lane 1 during all of that. So they get the first walker of the game. Oh well, yeah, you're not getting away from Hydration there.
Puddle punch, knock up 1, knock up 2. Axe was dead to rights there.
They have all the knockups, man. Puddle punch, like you said. You got the barrels to knock up. You got Hydration to knock up.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. A lot of Loki, like a lot of crowd control. Goo ball, stake also get thrown out. Oh god, I mean, singularity also at your disposal. Okay, mid boss time it is, folks. And there might just be an urn traded in for this one, as melee creeps can only really look on. They have not had a lot of control of this game in the early to mid stages. So easy rejuvenator pick up here. And I don't know, Jason, those walkers look mighty juicy right about now. Nice little wall though. That's a good catch. But Return to Shadows will get the Calico out of dodge.
There's a lot looking juicy because I don't think they're gonna get that earn turn in for free either. That was like the one saving grace of losing mid bosses. You would get an earn turn in, but Hydration's just in his face, knocking him up left and right. The earn's still gonna be down on the ground. They're still looking for the singularity again. Catch a Saya off guard. The backup's gonna be there, and that's another 2 kills added to the tally for Hydra Nation.
That's hate crimes. That is legitimately prosecutable offense from Hydration. Another soul earn behind all of this. Hydration, for a brief window, doesn't have any knockup capability. But otherwise, he's basically been Genghis Khan out there, Jason, if you know what I mean.
If you get improved reach on that too, your one just goes like across the entire map, basically. It is impossible. Like the distance it goes is ridiculous. And speaking of ridiculous, the lead is getting ridiculous. We're getting
opponents basically hear a whisper of your name in the next room and they get knocked up.
Exactly.
That's how extreme it is. That's wild. The bare suggestion of your presence. Oy. All right, Jake, give it to me straight, Doc. Now with that rejuve buff on Hydra Nation, a very comfortable mid-boss take. They look like they're in control.
It's like Catholic high school here out here, Mitch. Everybody's getting knocked up.
Had to go there.
That's crazy. Why are you crazy for that one?
Look, what can I say? The Dynamo is getting crazy. You know, just like every single fight so far, like this Warden has been punished twice with the singularity. And with this build, you're not really reliant on the singularity. Like it's a nice skill to have. It does up the ante in the team fight. But surviving this rejuve is going to be really difficult with so many threats online for Hydra Nation. Lord NM opening up here on this fight. It's like you can't really safely go onto anybody with the rotations that can come in for Hydra Nation. Looks like there's a fight coming in around the urn drop off right now.
Also, Surge of Power picked up, by the way, for the Dynamo, so you get that move speed whenever you use your knocker. Come on, bro. No one is escaping.
You were subtle about it, at least, Mitch.
Yeah, Jake, bro. Jake usually is the one that keeps it $1.50, bro. But that's
I'm not even on cast, and I still can't believe what I heard.
ZP picking his very strong jaw off the ground after that one. Here's the combo on Flick. That'll look great. Sorry, cool cheese. Your goose is cooked, buddy. Melee creeps down to 2 players left. It's Lowman and a very unhappy looking AVG, the Mirage. To try and keep this one alive, but these walkers are about to get the business, folks. Hydration gets hooked in. Bomb for his trouble. Little quantum entanglement, though, to shrug that one off. And Lowman did fall there. Hydra Nation getting full value, of course, out of this Rejuvenator buff, and they'll be able to back away and clean up the jungle on this right-hand side of the map. Buffs. Get yourself the skill tester machine, and we're good to go.
I like how Hydration, they get angered losing a map, and the responses Dynamo. Like of all heroes you could be going here, but it is working out so damn well for them. 31,000 souls. Your stat check territory for sure. Poshy Pop, I mean, he did great on the Wraith before. He is keeping up when it comes to the souls. The rest of his team, well, besides AVGs, unfortunately not. We're looking at like a 5-6K difference between most players on melee creeps in Hydra Nation. You can't team fight them right now because you can't group up, or you have a Dynamo singularity. You can't pick them easily because you have Lord NM to just cube them. I don't know what melee creeps does here to get back into this game, other than just hope that one of these hooks is going to be enough to get a kill somehow.
DMB on the full tank Calico, by the way. Fortitude, Bullet Armor, Spirit Armor, all picked up in one fell swoop. Ain't no one killing that guy right now. That is wild. We've seen this before, actually, like the tanky Calico. You carry like the utility items, like Cold Front and such, like into the enemy and just punish them there. Okay, was that a knockdown thrown out? I saw the anvil. Yes. Flick ends up using a knockdown there. I guess it was on...
No, Flick doesn't have knockdown. I think it was just the barrel.
Oh, okay. I saw an anvil, so I wasn't sure. I was always a bit sussy about that one. Either way, Cube here for Flick gets him out of the way. Now he's starting to look towards these base at bosses. Credit to him, melee creeps with 2 players trying to push that lane 3, but I think Leffer might be enough to actually hold both of them at bay, and this ultimately will leave melee creeps pretty underhanded when it comes to defending their base. This should be a patron knock here. Oh, yep, Leffer is going to 1v2, I think, in that bottom lane. Poshy Pop's already dead. Axe has seen better days. They're trying to get back here. And there's your last flex slot unlocked for Hydra Nation. They've got plenty of souls to spend after this, as that patron is about to be thrown into the pit as well.
Wait, what? Cool cheese. You're okay.
Don't worry
I think they're tilted. No, I mean, he went in ulted. Yep. He's definitely a little bit tilted.
They're under full
no, that was a good play,
Dynamo
Jason. That was a really good
syndrome.
play. Oh, boy.
It's rough out there. Someone said in the chat that they think they only picked Bebop to tilt Leffer, which is funny if you've seen his stream. He's not a fan of the Bebop. But either way, we have a weakened patron now. Very little left here for melee creeps to defend themselves. And Jake, I think this one's going to come to a swift end here.
Yeah, it's got everything but a bow on it here with hydration, you know, coming up on the singularity if he even needs it for the next team fight. I expect to see Hydra Nation probably just maybe hold this urn and bait a little bit until a mid boss, but they might even go for the drop off. I mean, they've got ultimates online. There's a couple down like the Bebop laser, so maybe you just go for the aggressive urn drop. I think that's high risk play here as Viscous isn't ready, but I mean, look at that pick off from Flick.
Oy, that's brutal. Poshy pop, yeah, just again, the kinetic blast making it very, very hard for him to do anything. Wall thrown up here from LA. He's trying to give himself some space. Lord and then went down. Obviously behind this, the soul urn has be returned one more time. Last couple base bosses do need to be cleared out here. Full janitorial duties for Hydra Nation. And Hydration's trying to get forward here with their quantum entanglement. The improved reach. My God, as that kinetic blast is so long. And we are warp zoning out of the base here. Hydration taking a fair bit of damage, but now we're into the pit and this patron is about to go down. Singularity on all of one target. Hydration happy enough with his impact over the course of the game to let that ultimate go for free. And there you have it, folks. For the 12th week in a row, Hydra Nation once more snatched away our $1,000 prize. Thanks to our friends at Intel. They are your Deadlock Fight Night NA champions once more.
And deserved, man. They showed us so many different things, so many different heroes they can play. They dug into their hero bag and came out with this mess of a draft that worked out so flawlessly. Really well strategized, did well behind that. I got to see Lord and M play something besides Kelvin, so I'm kind of happy here today. And Hydration, seen as Dynamo for a second time here in DFN. 100% win rate, not bad.
And I'm convinced, by the way, that Genghis Khan is way less egregious than Catholic high school. Like, at least I had a layer of abstraction there. You know what I mean? Long day for your boy, Jack.
Layer of abstraction. This is
I was getting scared whenever you throw to him that he was going to come up with something else to say. I was like holding my breath.
I appreciate Mitch not one-upping me. I know you could have, but he held back.
No, listen, that was good. I mean, I went to Catholic high school, so you know, I was too busy just trying to think if that was actually a thing. But look, gotta say, Jason teased us about this build at the start of the show. Didn't really know if it would be relevant here, and it was a draft for Hydra Nation. Didn't really have like a great support option. There was a Kelvin banned, so it turns out that like the Dynamo kind of worked here really well. And the first thing you said, Jake, was like the Viscous here really good. Like they picked that on like 4th or 5th position, but against a mostly ground board setup of melee creeps, you felt like that was going to be a big part of their success.
Yeah, I think Viscous, I think Dynamo, they were all there really to serve as frontliners for the Vindicta, for the Yamato, and they did admirably at that. So, I mean, Vegas was the true star, I think, of that game 3, and just in terms of like raw damage output. Well, I mean, obviously it's much more fun watching Hydration, you know, knock the enemies up, you know, catch them off constantly, punish them in the early game team fights, and then keep pushing objectives. But I think the fact that they had like this incredible backline behind them meant they could be so confident in picking, you know, an odd pick like Dynamo that we almost never see at this level of play, but it was just perfectly placed for exactly this game. We saw, you know, the quantum entanglement was a great escape for these Bebop hook into bomb combos. You're able to get yourself out of that, able to stun and control, you know, heroes like Warden. That's the absolute opposite of what they want, right? They rely on not being controlled. And so Dynamo really has the perfect matchup. And we talked about Hydra Nation, you know, their bag of trips being pushed to the end here. Like what more do they have to show us? I mean, this is exactly what we were hoping for out of them. It's the Hydration special, pulling out a hero that like nobody else plays and making it look like it's the meta. That's what makes this team so hard to beat. That's why they've been the champion for 12 weeks in a row now. It's well deserved here for Hydra Nation.
This is why I want to see like Team Liquid pick them up, send them to EU to start boot camping. Like I want to see what they rock against teams like Virtus Pro, Paravision, etc. Because you know those teams are going to make them dig even deeper into that bag to come out and to actually truly show us what they've been working on and have been hiding. Because I almost guarantee they're hiding some more things.
I just want to know, is Shiv good? Is Shiv good or not? Because the EU teams won't touch it with a 10-foot pole, and NA is first ban, first pick, full prio. I mean, I don't think we've seen differences in the meta across the regions, but that's about as stark as it's been.
That disagreement is something else.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was informed by last week's like result with Young Cat being so sick, but he was still hotly contested in NA during that show, during those games, even before the pop-off happened at the end of that series. So we'll see. We've got to talk about our player of the match, though, folks, presented by Intel. What he lacks in verbosity, he makes up for in impact in the server. It is your boy, Hydration. A man, a few words, but many frags on the Dynamo in this map 3, guys. It was fun to see, but again, we saw Warden to start with, where he and Leffa both really got rolling, and he was able to take over the game in map 1.
This is just a Hydration classic. The Warden, you know, he farms, he snowballs, he just shows up at some point in the game, and you're like, well, I guess we lose. And that's the textbook Hydration, right? Making the most of some early game space and turning into this huge late game carry threat. But it's the versatility for Hydration that I think really makes him the asset to this team that he is, right? There are other strong carry players in Deadlock right now, other players who can get farmed and show up in the late game. But with Hydration, I mean, he's probably the most diverse player from a hero pool perspective of anyone in the game right now. The level he brings on the number of heroes he has, you can't really get an advantage against this guy in the draft.
What I'm curious about with him, though, is that he plays a very, I feel like, set style of just like, I'm gonna farm, right? As you said before, he's just gonna farm up and then come out of the jungle and be like, okay guys, I'm ready to fight. I almost want to see if he wants to be like a, not say a complete player, because he's already a complete player, but like a real like triple threat, is if he can play like more of the carrier role in the early game. Not necessarily like he needs to. And if I even compare the way he plays to a lot of EU teams, I don't think anyone in EU really does the same style that he does. So he's kind of unique in that sense. But he's definitely, I think, one of like the best all-around players we have in Deadlock.
I mean, look at these. Great farm, of course, for your boy Hydration over the course of the game. But Leffa, another Yamato pick that looked great in game 1. We run it back here in game number 3. It looks fantastic. Lord and M looking good. Yeah, like you said, got off the Kelvin. We got to see the Viscous pick up here. Flick also making the hole there look really, really good. Involved in like a ton of those pick-off scenarios. DMB quietly being a real pain in the neck. Full tank Calico by the looks of things, with some of that those utility items that I brought into the fray, like Cold Front and such. Definitely seemed like a nuisance here. And I think, look, it's a great way to sort of sum things up, Jake. You mentioned that, you know, we saw Hydra Nation dig a little bit deeper into their bag of tricks. They kind of had to, and produced a draft that looks a little bit different than maybe the norm in terms of what we expect from them, especially with the way those bans went down, but still very, very effective, still good enough for that $1,000. So that's $12,000 thanks to our friends at Intel that this Hydra Nation team have been able to accrue over the course of their time here. And we are still, folks, waiting to see who in North America can actually catch up to them. They are setting the standard, no doubt about it. The debut of their new support player in Lord NM looks like it went off without a hitch. Still too early to tell, but I think that you'd be pretty happy with your performance if you were him coming out of this game, Jason.
Yeah, I think happy indeed. And I think again, the pool he can play offers another trick for Hydra Nation. I don't remember seeing Quig ever play Viscous, because there's normally Hydration who would play it, but the fact that he can play so many different things here for them, it allows them to like mix things up even further and add more diversity to their pool. And as Jake said before, if you ever want to be like a truly great player in Deadlock, you have to be able to master a lot of different heroes, 10 plus, you would say. And when we get to that point where there's 30, 40 heroes in the game, it's gonna become even more important that you're able to play so many different things to the same kind of level, and that everyone on the team is able to do that, because you keep so many teams guessing of who's playing what, and of course how you're gonna end up playing things out.
And on a side note here as well, we're now heading, like we mentioned at the start of the show, into less aggressive patch cycles for Deadlock, at least for now. So there will be more time for our teams in both regions to settle a little bit into a metagame and get a grip on things before they sort of invariably get changed a bit. So that should up the level as well, I think, especially with some of the teams that are still coming together. And next week, we look forward to once again inviting the Llama Lords, with obviously a new 6 player, back into the fray. They are the ones that pushed Hydra Nation to the limit. Leffa said that even without a cheater, they probably still would have been beaten by Llama Lords in that game. So that's good. It means melee creeps are a team, Jake, that can take maps off them, and Llama Lords, are a team that even Hydra Nation are beginning to fear. NA turning into a bit more than a one-horse race.
Yeah, and I think this is a great sign for Hydra Nation that they continue to innovate the meta, right? Like even as a team that's on top in the region, it would be easy to rest on your laurels and just kind of like keep running it back with what's been working for you. And for a while they were doing that, but today I think we got to see this Dynamo come out. We got to see some different strategies from Hydra Nation. The change up from Lord NM further opens their strategy. I think this is a team that is continuing to get better, which is a really difficult thing to do when you've been on top for so long. And I do want to give props, though, to Melee Creeps, to Llama Lords, to some of these other teams in NA, because I do feel the gap has been closing. Teams have been learning and improving. I mean, that comeback win in Game 2 from Melee Creeps really impressed me. They took an inch from, or Hydra Nation rather, gave them an inch, and then Melee Creeps was able to take a mile and really drive a strong comeback through fight after fight after fight, pickoff after pickoff. And that's not easy to do against a team like Hydra Nation. So I want to give my respect to Melee Creeps. They put on a great show today for the fans. This is a team that I want to see back in Deadlock Fight Night and see what they can do.
They're very right. I mean, in EU, it did close. It was originally like Buff and Joy as being the team. You give them 10, 20K solo lead, they will close out the game within the next 5-10 minutes. Hydra Nation was the exact same way. It took a little bit of extra time for NA to catch up, but they're for sure doing so just like EU's been able to.
And we'll take this chance as well to thank all of you in the chat for joining us. It's a ton of fun doing this with you every Wednesday night. So thank you for being here. Big shout out as well to Deathy. We're going to be raiding him after the stream. So once more, thank you for joining us. Big shout out to Intel, without whom this would not be possible. Hopefully you all join us again next week for our NA and EU editions of Deadlock Fight Night. It's going to be number 13, lucky number. So make sure you tune in for that. Until then, enjoy yourselves out there in the cursed apple, and we'll see you next week.